Good evening and welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of June the 6th, 2023. I am Briggs Simmons, the Planning and Zoning Chair. Prior to this meeting, announcements were posted. Notices were sent to all board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in this meeting. I will now turn it over to Mr. Phil Miller, Board Chairman, to introduce and confirm the presence of our commissioners. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope you guys will bear with me as we go through this parliamentary procedures. We didn't have a lot of votes at the Sheriff's Office, so I'm having to get used to this criteria, so please bear with me. Vice Chairman, District 3 Commissioner Tarina Carthen. She's not here. District 1 Commissioner Ricky Dobbs.
Present.
District 2 Commissioner Kelly Robinson.
Present, Mr. Chair.
District 4 Commissioner Mark Alcaraz.
Present, Chairman.
And I'm here myself. We have a quorum of the Board of Commissioners. I yield back to you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you. Also present, we have members of the Planning and Zoning Board. If you would confirm your presence when I call your name. Rob Thomas, our Vice Chair.
Present.
Teresa Knowles.
Present.
Oric Curry.
Present.
Frank Payne.
Present.
And Kirk Nicholson.
Present.
Our member Brandon Penniman has been excused for the evening. We do have a quorum. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff, Planning and Zoning staff present in the meeting. Ms. Duncan?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Stewart Stanley, our County Attorney, Michael Coleman, our Managing Director of Development Services, James Worthington, our Managing Director of Transportation, Suleiman Rana, our Chief Information Officer, Alex Betancourt. We have our Senior Zoning Administrator, Phil Schaefer, our Senior Planner, Chiquelle Johnson, our Planning and Zoning Board Clerk, Johanna Womack, and our Planning and Zoning Board Secretary, Kim Waters. And we also would like to thank our communications team and our sheriff's deputies for being with us tonight, as always. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tonight, there is a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners has granted an approval. As far as tonight's procedures go, I will conduct the public hearing. Planning and zoning staff will announce each application, followed by a full presentation on that application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of the application will be able to present their information. They will have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of an application. Members of the public in opposition to an application will be able to present their information. They will also have 2 minutes per person, or a total of 15 minutes. At the end of the 15 minutes, the public hearing will be officially closed. At this point, the staff will clarify any points in the zoning case that the board would have. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, the board will then ask the applicant for points of clarification. And this is not a time for the applicant to represent their case. Planning and Zoning Board will then entertain a motion. Our first agenda item tonight is the approval of the minutes of the May 2nd, 2023 Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, after reviewing the minutes, do you have any comments, changes, or questions concerning those minutes?
Chairman, it's Rob Thomas. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 2nd, 2023 meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Or Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, we will turn the approval of the board minutes of May the 2nd over to the Board of Commissioners with a unanimous approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, are there any questions or corrections for the minutes of the May meeting?
No, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do I have a second?
Second. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of, raise your right hand. All opposed? We have a unanimous decision, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, George, next agenda item, Ms. Duncan, is that yours?
Yes, sir.
That's
going
right.
to be mine. This one needs to be taken off the table, please.
Okay. At this point in time, I would ask the Planning and Zoning Board motion to untable S 2023-25, which was tabled last month.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to untable S 2023-25.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Frank Payne, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote to untable S 2023-25. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman, S 2023-25 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation to untable.
Board of Commissioners, what say you?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to untable S 2025 according to the planning and zoning recommendation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's untabled. Ms. Duncan, would
All
you make
right.
a presentation?
Yes.
We've already had the public hearing on this matter.
Yes, sir, that is correct. We have had the public hearing for and against this matter, and so we will jump right into the staff recommendation. The applicant and their representative are also here this evening if you have any questions for them. But essentially, this came to you in May as a request to change the architectural facade of this property. The applicant had already painted the facade, was not aware of the overlay district requirements. At that meeting, you asked us to continue to work with the applicant on what could be a suitable solution, for this issue. So we have met with the applicant. What we're presenting is a concept whereby the gray portion of the building changes to sort of a beige or tan color, something a little bit more neutral. We'd like to see the applicant add a little bit more additional brick or stone to the front facade of the building. They have submitted some revised graphics that I'll share with you here in just a moment. And the applicant has also indicated that they will be willing to participate in our upcoming small area plan for the 92 corridor. And so we had really good conversation. We really appreciate them continuing to work with us. As a reminder, this was the building before it was painted, and here you have kind of what it looks like currently. And then the applicant had proposed to add a bit of stone treatment on the front facade. You sent this back to us and said, hey, keep working on it. So what they've come back with, the revised compromise you see there, essentially retains the white painted areas on the building, but darkens the gray to something that's kind of in more of a brown or a beige category. Add a little bit of stone on the front. Again, planning staff would like to see a little bit more stone than what they're proposing. And then we would like to pin down that color swatch a little bit better of what that's going to be. So our recommendation is that we table the special use permit to the August 1st, 2023 regular meeting and give us time to continue to work on some of these details with the applicant. Tabling this does not impede their business function in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't impact the business licenses or any of the businesses operating in that space. But we are requesting a little bit more time to continue to work on this. If you like the concepts that have been presented, you certainly can make a motion to approve as presented, and we'll take that as your direction. But again, it's staff recommendation to have a little bit more time to finalize this, or if you have additional direction to give us on this one, we would certainly receive it. The applicant and the applicant's representative are here this evening if you have any additional questions for them. But otherwise, that concludes the update that I have to share with you this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, what is your desire on this?
Can,
Like to hear from the applicant?
yeah, could we hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative, please?
Okay.
Evening, everyone. Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hearing us again. Ms. Patel is here and will be up shortly. What you saw on the photographs were three different options about painting the exterior. Honestly, what she would request is that you approve it the way it currently is. If you wanted to go back, there are some options that you saw before you, and if I could have the pictures up again. They begin on page 8 if you have the printed program. If not, that's an option. Are you? To me, wait. This is probably the least suitable option for you. There's one that was part of the same palette that we talked about last month. You may remember there's another option that puts it a little bit darker. That's what you see currently. Her request, respectfully, is that you simply allow her to proceed with that as it's now been completed. By the way, this fence you see in the foreground is going away. I'll note that. So there's one option that would require the painting of the sections that you know are on both sides. There's a somewhat lighter option, and that's the third. So what we would request is you allow us to leave it as is. If not, we'd ask you to pick from one of those. If you don't like that, we'd certainly be willing to go back to the drawing board again. Staff has been wonderful to work with to help us solve this problem. We appreciate you approving it one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Good evening, Rinku Patel. Address is 2562 Fairburn Road, Douglasville, Georgia. I am the property owner of this building, requesting to keep it as is, or we are open to, discussing other options. We've been working with Allison and her team to come up with different options on what will be suitable best for the area. It definitely has helped the other tenants in that building. It's definitely helping gaining some traction on trying to lease the rest of the spaces in there. As you guys may be aware, when it was red brick, it was, hard to miss, not seen. It was pretty vacant at the old time, so it's definitely helped revive the building. We also have a couple tenants that have businesses in there that would like to say a few words on that.
Okay, how would you, the public hearing on this matter has been closed, so the public is not allowed to speak at this point in time. But how would you feel if it were tabled until the August meeting to give you more time to work with the staff on a compromise?
I can work with them.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, what is your desire?
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
It's not necessarily public, but you mentioned the upcoming hearing or upcoming council to look at whole Fairburn Road
Correct.
overlay. Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So we have received a grant from the Atlanta Regional Commission to go back and revisit that 2007, original Livable Centers Initiative plan. We are just in the early stages of that. We have not even brought it to the Board of Commissioners to be accepted, but we do have their approval to apply, so we feel confident that it will be accepted going forward. But that grant is going to kind of basically go and evaluate the corridor since 2007 to today, the overlay, all of the various concepts that have been implemented there, and just kind of take a fresh look, at kind of what we have going on in that corridor as we're, not quite 20 years into the implementation of that plan. It's a good opportunity to kind of take a look at that. That will be a process that will probably take us the better part of a year, right, by the time we go into contracting and get the study underway and do all the public engagement. We don't anticipate an outcome of that until, probably closer to this time next year. But I just mentioned it here because I appreciate, the property owner's willingness, the applicant who is the property owner, to work with us, as we can kind of continue to move forward on this corridor.
So these current overlays was 2007 is when it was finalized?
Thereabouts.
Yeah, so it's kind of outdated, you think? It's time to...
We did some updates in 2020, we did some updates in 2020 that allow kind of the option for the fence or some enhanced landscaping. We still preserve sort of the double row of trees along the front, and then we gave a few more options for architectural approvals. We just didn't expressly say you could paint the brick of the building, So we did tweak it a little bit in 2020 with the help of a consultant, and now we're just kind of going back and taking a fresh look at everything on the corridor and how it's been implemented over time. So it's not been quite since 2007 that we haven't taken a look at that overlay.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm just going to see what we're looking at in the future because, personally, I think it looks nice the way it is. I do see brighter and, I can see the advantage of it, but it has to be uniform somewhat in that area. That's what we want to make sure we keep as well. So
Right.
the way it is right now, but hopefully we make some changes and it won't be the case, right? We possibly make some changes in colors and different things like that.
It's going to have robust public engagement, and the assistance of a design team that will be working with us on this. This application was well underway before this particular issue came up. We know that the county has made significant investments in this corridor, as kind of having sort of an identity for Douglas County. So at the staff level, we certainly want to honor, the decisions that have been made previously, but we think it's a good opportunity to look at where do we need to go in the future. So we're not suggesting that this application be tied up in any way in terms of a decision, until we get to the end of that process. Like I said, that's a better part of the year that we'll be working in it. But we are grateful that the applicant is willing to be a stakeholder and help us, craft the future, because this building is a pretty substantial, investment on this corridor. It's always been kind of a landmark in that area. So we think it's important to have that robust, community engagement, and we're just grateful that she's willing to continue to work with us through this process.
Okay, well, thank you.
Any
Mr.
other
Chair-
comments,
Yes, sir,
ma'am?
I'd like to ask Ms. Duncan a question. Did Mr. Fowler say that the fence is going away?
So, right, that is one of the options under the 2020 amendments that we made. You can either keep the fence, as presented, or you can do an enhanced landscape. Now, I haven't seen a plan for the enhanced landscape, and I would remind you that has to be approved by staff before you go and take it down. But that is an option that they have available to them to either keep the fence, that has been put in place, or to present, to DRC an enhanced landscape option for consideration.
And there is a consultant that's advising the county on updating that overlay corridor?
So there will be, if the Board of Commissioners chooses to accept the grant. That's a federal funding through that grant, and so we will have to go out to competitive bid. There is not currently anybody under contract to help with that. But as we move forward with the process, we will go to competitive bid for a consultant team that will help, guide that process.
So the county will receive grant money? Is that federal grant money?
Correct. It's the Livable Centers Initiative, so there's $120,000 in federal money that we're receiving and a $30,000 match.
It's a competitive grant process, so the county will be competing for that money?
The county has competed, and we were awarded that grant, when was that, Jaquel? Probably early May. The announcement was made early in May.
Okay.
That we
All
were
right.
awarded that. So the Board of Commissioners will have to formally accept that. I don't want to get, too far out over my skis with that one, so they will have to accept that. But if they do, then we will accept the funds and we will move forward with the study.
So there's a possibility that overlay will change?
It could be. It's still many, many months out from making that decision, but, we're going to be looking at how that overlay has been implemented to bring about the vision of the LCI corridor, and look at kind of our placemaking, steps that we've taken and other kind of design criteria along that corridor. We have transit on the corridor now. That's something that has changed. So we'll be looking at kind of how we can make sure that we're having transit supportive uses planned for, in that area. So we'll be looking at a variety of things with
So
that study.
the ongoing construction directly across the street from this applicant's property, they're adhering to the existing overlay requirements?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
I have one question for Attorney Fowler. I know he brought it up. I know that we say if we table this, it'll give you actually 2 months, till the next period, till we come.
It would be August.
So in that, would you be able to have it prepared to talk about, I don't know if that's going to be happening, the fence removal and what that will look like if it's tabled? I know you just brought it up. I'm just trying to look into that.
We'll have to meet with staff about that and look at a timing issue, but
Okay.
between now and August, we could get with staff about that. One option is, since the overlay is going to be reconsidered, let her leave it the way it is until a final decision is made about the overlay. That would be a year, as Allison mentioned a moment ago, but that's another option, allow her to continue to operate as she is until we refine the overlay the way you would like it refined. But that's just an option.
Yeah, and with that said, that's the question I was going to ask you, Allison, right there. She spent the money on it. It might be a moot point. They go and say, yes, we need some changes to the colors. If we table it, it has to pick up the next
August 1st,
next
that's
meeting,
correct.
so we can't really table it to, like you said, go until this commission comes out with their
Correct.
findings. So tabling would not provide that avenue to do that, right?
Well, so staff does not recommend allowing that building to stay for the better part of a year. We think it would cause confusion on the corridor. Other people may not realize that this is an ongoing process, right? So they may start painting their buildings, in violation of the corridor. Again, as the applicant had stated, she wasn't aware of the overlay. She wasn't aware that she couldn't do that. So my concern is that if we allow that to just stand for the better part of a year, you run the risk of other buildings coming in not realizing that that's not something, that's going to be allowed. So our recommendation is that you table it till August. We kind of address this issue that we have in this moment in time, because again, I can't say how the overlay is going to change or if it is going to change, right? We would anticipate that that's certainly a possibility, but we can't possibly predict what that's going to look like going forward. So,
Understand.
So we are trying to remedy this. We are trying to be fair to the applicant, you know, and kind of looking at where part of it can stay, part of it would have to change to be more cohesive. But staff does not support the idea of allowing that to stay as is until the completion of the study.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Fowler or the applicant. We realize that there will be, if you go with the options that we were given tonight, there will be a cost involved. Are you aware of that? And I assume you would be able to handle that situation.
Yes, I am aware of the cost that it will be, but that's something, you know, we'll have to come up with to make sure we meet whatever we need to meet with the overlay district.
Okay, thank you.
Planning and Zoning Board, any more questions? Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for whatever questions you folks might have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions? Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, I don't want to make this longer than it needed to be. And I've been listening. So I'm going to exercise a little home rule because this is out of my district. Government should not hold citizens hostage to their process. That's bureaucracy. And I'm listening to this like, really? Now, I get we've had 15 years, me coming in 08. I've lived this corridor. I remember Publix wasn't there. I remember when the time clock was just coming online. I get this. So here we are, we got a citizen who's invested into an asset that is below the landscape, that is down, that has some challenges with it. So this citizen is actually helping spur at least, oh, now we're gonna hold the standard? But across the street, we'll let aluminum siding inside the studio and other stuff. We do exceptions when we want to. And it's just like, wow. Now I get it, and all the options, she's willing to work with you, she ain't got no choice, we're the government. We're making her feel good about it, but I'm like, wow. And gonna make her wait until we figure out what we're gonna do with the consultant. When do we start doing that? When do we start treating citizens like that? I have a problem with that position, that statement. She's already down the path. She's already operating like, okay, really? She should not be submitted to us like that. Let her keep moving. I'm not, you're giving options. She's flexible. She already put the money in. I get it. Where was the notification process when you bring people online? Nobody should have this problem going forward in that quarter because I hope you're communicating with them when they get these special use permits. They'll understand the rules. So we're penalizing, I mean, I'm just, oh. This one, I'm like, okay, guys, how long are you going to take y'all to do that? But it ain't about her. It's about y'all process. If you listen to the narrative, it was about the process. It's like, okay, do this, or stand over here like, hey, while we were, our process, our grant. It's about the citizen, not the internal process. Where's the priority? I mean, I get it. I think this one, y'all have an option to go forward. You can work through this. You should have been more thoughtful about the paint. You had 15 years. Yeah, I know we've done some updates, but she did take a hit on behalf of the greater good to spur to move along. That asset was empty for so long. We know the flooding, so I mean, come on. It's a depressed asset. I get it. And I get that, oh, we're going to hold her to standard, but we let all these other exceptions along the corridor that, you know, I'm not going to take all night. It's like, but you let this go, let this go, let this go, let this go, let this go. But you're going to hold somebody who puts a real entrepreneur, put some money in. She turned this thing around. Now, I get it, but it doesn't have to be so literal. I think that I think we need to come a little bit more toward her than she coming more to us because she's really not. She's got to do what we say. So that's an illusion that she's cooperating because the point is you're pretty much dictating it. So with that being said, I've made my comments. I think we can let it go as is. I mean, it has tail end for what, to this point? What does our comprehensive plan have to do with her enterprising? It's not related. I can't believe we said that to her, that this is even a consideration. She's already operating. She always flung. What that got to do with us and our process? Our grants. Look at us. Look how much we pull down. Look how great we look. That is a conflict, guys, and citizens shouldn't be treated like that in this case, but I'm gonna follow the will of my board. Obviously, I'm just one vote. But on this one, I think this one, I mean, you guys work out the option. Joe, get up there, represent your client accordingly, but I don't think we should keep kicking the can on this while we get our act together, and she didn't invest it today. You done had 15 years to do this. We done had plenty of cash that we could have floated a study. It ain't had nothing to do with the federal grant. Why are we saying this to this lady like this, as if this is a real argument? I've taken long enough. I've made my point. I have no questions. One question. Can Joe come down? Mr. Fowler, are you out there, sir? Yes. All right, Joe. Can we find a solution going forward? Come back to, y'all pick out the pictures and stuff. I can't see the pretty colors. Y'all will work through that through staff. But my question simply is, can we find an option that allow us to coexist? Recognize there may have to be some giving in the future, but not on the move forward. I don't want to have to do that.
Yes,
what are your
sir.
thoughts?
We can work with staff and get it resolved. If the vote tonight is not to permit it as it stands, we work with them every day, and
You'll work through it.
feel like we can do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to yield, Mr. Chair. I'll follow the will of the Planning and Zoning recommendation and the full board. I yield, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more statements from the commissioners? I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I would like to make a motion to approve S 2023-25, Fairburn Time Plaza, with the findings and condition read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Sorry, may I clarify one thing? We didn't actually offer findings or conditions on this one. Our recommendation was to table. So just want to make sure that I understand
So
exactly.
Let me read, say my,
Yes,
can
sir.
we say it?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a motion to approve application S 2023-25 for approval, Fairburn Times Plaza.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board?
May I ask I'm sorry, I apologize. May I ask a quick clarifying question? Are you wanting to approve to leave it as is with the gray and the white, or are you wanting to approve her revised concept that she's presented with the brown and the white with the small band of stone along the bottom?
Say it again.
I apologize.
No worries,
I just
no
want to
worries.
make sure I'm
Make it
clear on what we're
right, I
approving.
understand.
Thank you.
This is
We have to get it
the
clear.
second time around, so.
Sure, thank you.
Make sure we get it clear. All right, Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a motion to approve 2023-25 as it sits and stands today, Fairburn Town Plaza.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of approving S 2023-25, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Motion fails. Planning and Zoning Board, do we have another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to table application S 2023-25 until the August 1st, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, everyone wishing to vote in favor of tabling S 2023-25 until the August 1st, 2023 meeting, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, sir.
S 2023-25 comes to you with a recommendation unanimously to table until August 1st meeting.
Commissioners, we have a motion to table S 2023-25 to the August the 1st meeting. Go ahead, sir. Huh?
May I have the floor, sir?
You sure can.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a counter motion to approve S 2023-25 for approval, as is.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioners, how do you vote? I can't hear you. Is there any discussion? I told you. No discussion? If you're in favor of, raise your right hand. If you're opposed, we have a unanimous decision, sir.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Board of Commissioners, best of luck to you going forward. Okay, next item is S 2023-28, which was also tabled at the May 2nd meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion to untable S 2023-28?
Chairman Rob Thomas, make a motion to untable S 2023-28.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, I second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor of untabling S 2023-28, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman, we are recommending untabling S 2023-28.
Board of Commissioners, we have a request to untable S 2023-28. Any discussion?
I make a motion that we untable application S 2023-28.
Do we have a second?
Yes, sir, second.
All in favor of, raise your hand. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have a unanimous decision.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Johnson, would you please present this? And if I am remembering correctly, we had gone no further on this than tabling. Is that correct? So we're starting from scratch on this one.
Yes, there will be a public hearing.
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, P&Z Board. Good afternoon, Board of Commissioners. Before you, I have S 2023-28. The applicant is requesting a special use permit. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a short-term rental located at 3202 Beaver Drive, Beaver Estate Subdivision, Douglasville, 30135. Before you, I have the zoning map. The parcel is highlighted in red. It is currently zoned RLD, residential low density. Before you, I have the aerial image. It currently sits at the intersection of Beaver Drive and Pritchard's Ridge Drive. Before you, I have the survey of the property. Before you, I have the street view of the property. And after analyzing the special use permit criteria, it does meet the criteria. Staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S 2023-28 with the following findings and directives of staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare.
Okay.
I will now accept any questions, and I believe the applicant is here as well.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, at this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Then you would have 2 minutes or 15 minutes total time allocated. Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Confidence, and the address is 3202 Beaver Drive. I do apologize for last time. I was actually at the wrong place, the other address. My apologies, and please forgive me. I would like you guys to allow me to share my property with short-term renters. I'm a licensed attorney here. I work from home. I live there. I just want to be. It's more room that I need. I just want to be able to share my room with some other people, but I will be there using my property as normal.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, if you would have a seat for a moment, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant. Yes, ma'am. How do you vet your, the people that you rent to? How do you vet them?
It's vetted through Airbnb.
So you don't do a criminal background check on them, correct?
Airbnb vets the applicants, and they use their system to vet them.
I have learned from a homeowner in the neighborhood that that corner where your house sits is also a pickup and drop-off spot for the school buses.
Yes.
And they expressed to me their concern for the children that will be at that corner waiting for the bus or being dropped off in the afternoon, that they were concerned about who you would be renting your property to.
So my property, as I mentioned, I live there, and also there are cameras all over my property. So anybody or anything that steps on my property, I see, and I'm living there. As well as no one is allowed to park anywhere. The school buses and their parents, I allow them to park on my property without any issues. I don't allow my guests to park on the property. They actually have a garage and a driveway, so they have no business parking anywhere where the school buses are parking.
So the parents park their cars there waiting for the children or dropping off their children, and then the school bus does drop off and pick up right there at your property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions they may have of the applicant or staff.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? We have none, sir.
I have no questions. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
This is Frank Payne. I make a motion to approve S 2023-28, a request for a special use permit to allow a short-term rental from the home located at 3202 Beaver Drive, Beaver Estate Subdivision, Douglasville, 30135.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Or Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving S 2023-28, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, S 2023-28 comes to the Board of Commissioners with an approval request.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions? Motion? Okay, go ahead with it.
May I go, sir?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to approve S 2023-28 as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Have a discussion.
Questions?
Yes, so staff, which commission district is this a part of?
2.
2. Thank you. I yield.
All in favor? Oh, you have a question? I can't keep up. Go ahead.
No, we're good. We're flowing with you. All right, so we're going to keep this simple, keep it moving, because I know we've got a long agenda, we've got a lot of guests here. So, again, just for the record, this is a topic that comes up from time to time, and I do appreciate the applicant's willingness to be amenable to the public with a separate jurisdiction school bus. I mean, that's commendable to have somebody with school kids pulling up in front of your house. I get it. Thank you. I mean, I do get it. Been there, done that before, and understand what that means to have that type of having kids on your corner, regardless of the age. My question has more to do with, this is to staff, not the applicant, just for the record. So is this part of an HOA, yes or no?
No.
It is not. All right, great. So it's not part of an HOA community, homeownership, or POA, or COA, or whatever it's called now. So since it's not part of that, and so this is part of a normal, it might have had an HOA, it may be inactive, it may not have never had one, it's a neighborhood, doesn't matter. But we're allowing this in this instance without any restrictions from other citizens, and obviously nobody was here from the public to go against this. Do we see this as being consistent with those in HOAs versus non-HOAs? The recommendation to approve?
Based on the analysis, yes.
All right, okay, I yield. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a motion?
You have a motion on your side?
Have a motion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. We turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. That was approved by the commissioners. Our next agenda item, please, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, the next case is S2023-34, a special use permit. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow an automotive repair shop in light industrial located at 2771 Winston Industrial Parkway, Winston 30187. Before you, I have the zoning map. The subject parcel is highlighted in red. As you can see, it is light industrial, and it does have residential to the left and to the north of the property. Before you, have an aerial image of the parcel. And this is a street view of the subject property. And before you, I have the survey. And based on these special use criteria, staff is recommending approval of the requested special use permit S2023-34 with the following findings, conditions, and directives to staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. And the condition is the applicant shall submit to the Developmental Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address development standards in the UDC and the concerns and the requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated June 6, 2023.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Is the applicant present?
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Mariela Gordievich, and I am the representative for the applicant. And we are requesting a special use permit to allow automotive repair shop to be established at 2771 Winston Industrial Parkway, Winston, Georgia 30187. And we are requesting a special use permit to resume the repair shop, which it used to be a repair shop. We're just coming in as a new company.
Okay, new purchases, right?
Yes.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you would just stand by for a minute, I'm sure we'll have some questions. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You also would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Seeing no one moving, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant's representative or of staff?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I do have a staff question. Seeing that this is already light industrial zone, so by right, it's already been used for this particular purpose in the past, correct?
Yes, it is being brought.
Just changing hands only, don't think it's going on here?
Yes, it is being proposed as a general automotive shop. It is being brought to you now because of Article 3, Section 317, automotive repair or maintenance uses shall not be established on a lot that is either adjacent or directly across the street from any residential zoning district without receiving a special use permit from the Douglas County Board of Commissioners.
Okay, understand. What I'm saying is, what was it prior? What were they using for prior? Do you know that?
I would
by
have
chance?
to get
Okay.
back with you with the prior use.
Okay, I'm just curious if it's just changing hands scenario, therefore they got caught up in the new zoning requirements, or is this something brand new to this particular facility? You know, so you're not sure what it was before?
As of right now, no.
Okay, all right, that's fine. And the main issue here is because it's next to residential.
Yes.
Other than that, light industrial, you could have done this anyway. If it was light industrial next to it, we wouldn't be here. By right, they could do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So just because it's next to residential, the only reason. And that particular residential is just a parcel, is not, is vacant property, correct? The way it looked like on the map anyway.
There actually is a house on that property. It's towards the main street. So with the owner's property is that entire parcel that goes all the way to the train track in the back.
Oh, okay, it's on the other end, okay.
Yes.
All right, and that person is not here to, or have they complained or made any,
I have not received any complaints.
no complaint from them? Okay, thank you.
Can
Any
we,
other questions?
can we get a, not the aerial shot, but the ground view? Do you have that? Okay. All right. So this is as is. Is there any coding issues or anything that's going on with it as it present stands?
As it stands today, no.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, you have any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Alcaraz.
This is for planning zone. Currently, what is down Winston Industrial Parkway? And I know that there's other buildings besides just this one down there.
Oh, are you asking the uses on that?
Yes, the uses.
So yeah, just take a look at that in regard to the question about the uses. The last thing that we've had a business license issued for at Winston Industrial Parkway was a pallet manufacturing shop. So that's the last thing that we have a recorded business license for in that area. If there was an automotive use operating there previously, it was not a use that pulled a business license to be operating there.
But there's a couple of industrial buildings down that road, is there not?
There are, the only thing that we have a business license issued for currently is the pallet manufacturing.
Okay. Okay. And then the property that's adjacent to that, the residential, that house sits way up toward Veterans Memorial Highway, correct?
Yes.
So there's quite a bit of distance between the residential and where this property is located.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, Chairman. I yield.
Any more? Mr. Chairman, we turn it back over to you.
Okay, planning and zoning, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, it's Kurt Nicholson. I make a motion to approve a special use permit to allow for an automotive repair shop in a light industrial located at 2771 Winston Industrial Parkway with a condition read into the record by staff.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to approve S 2023-34. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. That is unanimous. Mr. Chairman, S 2023-34 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. What say you?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve S 2023-34 for the special use permit for the automotive repair shop at 2771 Winston Industrial Parkway in Winston 30187 for the special use permit for a automotive shop.
Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
All in favor, raise your. Mr. Chairman, we have a unanimous decision.
Thank you very much. Best of luck to you going forward. Mr. Johnson, you have our next agenda item, please.
Yes. The case is S2023-35, special use permit. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow an automotive repair shop in LI Light Industrial located at 6416 North Stewart Water Road, Lithia Springs, zip code 30122. Before you, I have the zoning map. As you can see, the highlighted parcel is blue light industrial, and it is surrounded by residential RLD. Before you, I have the aerial image of the property. And before you, I have a street view of the parcel as is, stands today. And this is the survey of the property. And based on the special use permit criteria, staff is recommending approval. Staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S2023-35 with the following findings and directive to staff. The use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, would like to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, then you would have 2 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, sir. My name is Duke Nguyen. The address is 6416 North Sweetwater Road in Liston Springs, Georgia. I would like to thank the board for reviewing my application. I also would like to thank Mr. Jaquil Johnson specifically for calling me and reminding me of the meeting. So I really appreciate that. Because, we're so busy, with everything, and I'm just so glad that he called twice, for the first meeting at the community center and for this one. But thank you so much for reviewing, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, if you would just stand by, I'm sure we'll have some questions in a minute.
Yes.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Again, seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
It's Rob Thomas. I have a question for staff. So similarly to the last request, LI next to residential, similar situation here?
Yes.
Okay. So no other reason other than that? Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure, it seems to be, I thought that's what it was, to make sure that it was clear. Similar to the last one, just because of the proximity is adjacent to another residential lot, they will need the special use permit.
That is correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Johnson, we've had no comments from anyone in opposition to this?
No, staff has not received any complaints.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Question, we had any coding or anything, code enforcement issues?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to you for any questions the commissioners may have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
Just one question. Has there, for the applicant, has there been, or maybe for staff, has there been any other complaints about the property being a repair shop from any of the residents in the area?
No, staff has not received any complaints.
Okay, that's all I just wanted. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any more? Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I think this is right on the line, but I think this is yours, right, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All right. So just in general, so again, back to the point, just for education. So you got light industrial next to residential. And so whenever you have those, that's me? No. All right. Whenever you have two zonings that are right next to each other, that's always a challenge. And we have that throughout this county. And this is just for the record about the future and how we zone things. And sounds like this is a neighborhood. It sounds like it's amicable. But, you know, make sure there's proper buffers, noise, and things of that nature. But again, if there's nobody that's complaining, nobody has issues, they can coexist. It doesn't have to be light industrial over residential, residential over light industrial. Sometimes it's just a matter of coming down the middle and say, can we coexist? So it sounds like there's no complaints. Looks like this thing can move forward. So my question is this pre-existing, yes or no?
Yes.
How long?
It was rezoned back in August of 1981.
Rezoned, and it's coming back because we're just bringing them back to.
Well, it's coming back because of Section 3, it being automotive,
Yep.
and residential around it needs a special use permit.
Right. So it didn't get grandfathered since this was old. This is something that we enacted as a board recently, and so now they've got to come into compliance.
So initially, it was a fabric manufacturing shop.
Yep.
It had been established in the 60s.
Yep.
It was in residential. Then it was rezoned in August of 1981 to light industrial, and the applicant bought it and is applied for his
version.
automotive.
I got it. His version. Got it. I'm good on that. My question. Thank you for answering me. Mr. Chair, I yield. Thank you, sir.
Any more questions or comments? Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gwynn, would you approach the podium again, please? You heard the two conditions that were read in. Are you in agreement with those two conditions?
What, I'm sorry, what were
The two conditions that Mr. Johnson read in? Do you need me to reread them?
I'm sorry, the light industrial? About
No,
special
the
use permit?
condition of
Yeah, I
approval.
saw it, yes, sir. That was on the screen.
Okay, so you are in agreement with those two conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do we have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Thomas, I make a motion to approve S 2023-35, a request for a special use permit to allow an automotive repair shop in light industrial located at 6416 North Sweetwater Road, Lithia Springs, with all the conditions read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote to approve S 2023-35 as read with the conditions and findings as read into the record. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman. S 2023-35 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I move to request to approve S 2023-35, a request for a special use permit to allow automotive repair shop in LI located at 6416 North Sweetwater Road, Lithia Springs, Georgia, 30122.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. Best of luck to you on that venture. Mr. Johnson, do you have our next item?
Yes. The next item is S 2023-36. The applicant is requesting a special use permit. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a short-term rental for the home located at 1711 West Kellogg Circle in the Kellogg subdivision, Douglasville, 30134. Before you, I have the zoning map. It is zone RLD, and the gray part the gray part of the zoning map is the city of Douglasville. This is the aerial image of the property. It is highlighted in red. And this is a street view of the property. This is a survey of the property. And based on the special use permit criteria, staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S2023-36 with the following findings and conditions. And directive of staff, the use will not modify the land use plan or intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglasville Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Is anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is John Kenywa. I'm the owner of this property, located at 1711 West Carroll Circle, Douglasville, Georgia. I'm seeking for a permit to operate a short-term rental property. I live in Douglasville, and I thought this is a good opportunity to invest and also to be part of the society of Douglasville. Thank you.
Okay, is that it, sir? If you would stand by, I'm sure we'll have some questions. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Again, seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Or Curry, the applicant, could you step forward, please? The question is, will you be staying in this home as well, or you would just do it completely as a Airbnb, or I guess you're using it as Airbnb, correct?
I'll be using as Airbnb, and I will be staying there.
You'll be staying at the property as well?
Yes.
Okay, what type of safety measures do you have at that property?
I have cameras everywhere, and anybody who rents the property has to be vetted by the Airbnb and my agent who give me the service. And they collect the individual information, IDs, their background check is done, and they also verify that there are people who have no bad records.
Okay. Will they have access to the driveway, or is it a garage, or how is it for parking?
There's a driveway and there's a garage.
Okay.
2 carports.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. It's in a subdivision, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Does it have an HOA?
No.
Doesn't?
No.
Okay. Have you had any dealings with the neighbors to let them know what you're in the process of doing?
Yes, we have a very good relationship with my neighbors.
They're aware,
Yes, they are aware.
they're okay with it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? None here.
None there. Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion and the presentation. Do I have a motion, please?
This is Frank Payne. I make a request to approve a special use permit to allow a short short-term rental for the house located at 1711 West Kellogg Circle, Kellogg Subdivision, Douglasville, 30134.
Ms. Rob Thomas, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote to approve S 2023-36. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It comes as a unanimous recommendation to approve S 2023-36.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do you have a motion?
Chairman, I motion to approve S 2023-36, a request for a special use permit to allow short-term rental from the home located at 1711 West Kellogg Circle in Kellogg Subdivision in Douglasville, Georgia, 30134.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Chairman, we have a unanimous decision in favor of it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Best of luck to you on this rental venture. Mr. Johnson, next item, please.
Yes, the next item is S 2023-38, a special use permit request. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a contractor's office with fleet vehicles in LI Light Industrial located at 10908 Veteran Memorials Highway, Lithia Springs, 30122. Before you, I have the zoning map. As you can see highlighted, the parcel is light industrial with heavy commercial to the west and to the north and to the east, light industrial. Before you, I have the aerial image of the property. Subject property is highlighted in red. And before you, I have the street view of the property. Before you, I have the survey of the property. And based on the special use permit criteria, it does meet the criteria. Staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S 2023-38 with the following findings, conditions, and directives to staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And condition: the applicant shall submit to the Developmental Review Committee for review to address the developmental standards under the Highway Corridor Overlay in accordance with the UDC Section 4.23 and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated June 6, 2020.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, how are y'all?
All right.
It's Darrell Wooten, and the address is 10908 Veterans Memorial Highway, Lithia Springs, Georgia. I'm just trying to move my office to this address.
Okay, you heard the condition that was read into the record. Are you in agreement with that condition?
Oh,
Should it be approved?
I just got I don't know what that condition is, sir. I ain't.
That you should submit to the DRC Development Review Committee for review to address the development standards under the Highway Corridor Overview in accordance with the Uniform Development Code, Section 4.23, and the requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated June 6th. You're in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. Again, seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentations. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Rob Thomas, I have just a question for the applicant. Just for clarification, you've been using this space, you continue to use the space as you've been using it, you're just moving it from your home office to the building now?
Yes, sir.
Nothing, no other changes, you're not changing the building or adding any other property, any other buildings to this land, just the way it is, just moving your office? That's it?
That's it.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Any other questions, Planning
Yes,
and
sir.
Zoning?
Before you-
Don't
Right.
leave, Mr. Wood.
You indicated that you're going to have fleet vehicles located there. Tell me a little bit about
I got it.
these tractor trailers? Or what?
No, sir. No,
Mhm.
sir. They're just utility trucks. We work on schools. We drive around, and I'm just parking all these there where they ain't in my yard. And that's where I just want to move my office.
You have a space there for them to park
Yeah, I park them inside the building.
inside the building? Oh, okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
No, sir.
We have none.
Have none. Okay, you may take your seat, Mr. Wooten. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussions, the questions, and the answers. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Thomas, I make a motion to approve S 2023-38, special request, special use permit to allow a contractor's office with fleet vehicles in light industrial located at 10908 Veterans Memorial Highway, Lithia Springs, with the one condition read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the request for a special use permit for S 2023-38, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman. S 2023-38 comes to the board with a unanimous approval for recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. The Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do you have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve S 2023-38, a request for a special use permit to allow contractor's office with fleet vehicles in light industrial located at 10908 Veterans Memorial Highway, Lithia Springs, Georgia, 30122.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We have a unanimous decision, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wooten, best of luck to you. You got your approval there. Okay, our next item, Mr. Schaefer.
Mr. Chairman, our next item is S 2023-39, Alexander Babiev. This is a special use request for a metal siding on accessory buildings in the OIC office institutional located at 3720 West County Line Road in Lithia Springs. The property is located on the west side of County Line Road, just north of the intersection with Fairburn, which puts it within 1,000 feet of the Fairburn Road Highway Corridor overlay. There's an existing 3,700 square foot brick-clad office building and paved parking area on the property, and it is wooded in the rear. The applicant requests permission for two metal-clad structures, one of 7,875 square feet and one of 2,250 square feet, proposing to house contractors' offices with storage suites in addition to the existing brick-clad office. The requirements under Article 3, Section 310, Standards for Office, Commercial, and Industrial Use, the building exterior standards require all non-residential structures in zoning districts other than LI and HI to be clad in wall sidings comprised of 100% Type A materials. That specifically, they prohibit metal siding. When you look at the highway corridor overlay, there's a provision in that that says that an applicant come before the board and ask permission for an alternate material, and that has to be a special use permit approval for that alternate material. However, within the code, it also says that whatever zone district you're in, the The more restrictive requirements, either the base zone or the highway corridor zone, shall apply. In this case, the highway corridor is not trumped by the office institutional category, and so the request for metal siding is coming to you as a special use permit request. Staff is recommending denial, but the code does allow them to come forward and ask you for permission and make a case for you. However, in this instance, as you'll see, here's the zoning map of the property. It's office institutional, surrounded by some commercial and residential. Here's the property outlined in red. As you can see, when I go back to the zoning map, there is still some office institutional between the property proper and the neighboring residential, so that it does not have to comply with the setback standards as if it were up against the residential property. So that is acting as a buffer, that small strip of land. Here's a picture of what's out there right now at that intersection. As you can see, it's pretty well developed. There's only a couple of parcels that are still vacant. This is the site plan that came into us. It shows 9 different office suites that'll be built in metal-sided building. There's 2 below in an Independence 2,200 square foot building, and then there's the 7 above in a row, all, as I point out, in yellow to be clad with metal. This is a close-up of that. There's a detention pond that will go into the front of the property that currently is slightly wooded, which does provide some buffering of the view from the street. This is a view of the property, and you can see there is already a deceleration lane going into the parking lot. This is a view again from West County Line into the property, and you can see the office building and vehicles parked in front of it. Here's the neighboring building, also made out of brick, and staff has reviewed the criteria and finds that several of the criteria are not met, and we are recommending denial on the basis of factors 1, 2 that do not meet and are inconsistent with the code, 1, 2, and 3. And in this case, recommend denial with the finding that A, the use will modify the land use plan and the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and B, the granting of the special use permit may adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Babiev, the owner of the property at 3720 West County Line. I want to give you guys the vision of this project that we have. These are contractor offices that are targeted towards small business owners. Think of plumbers, handymen, getting done with their trade and coming here, parking their vehicles inside or having some tools. Think of Amazon packing and stuff like that. So why we came here today is because I, as a real estate investor, 100% agree that if this was a new development project, there wasn't an existing building on site, that it would be an eyesore, and metal structures have a bad reputation. However, in the front of this property, we already have a beautiful large brick structure that's been there, and we are now trying to develop the 2-acre lot that is available to us. And to the back of our lot is a water tower, land that will never get developed in that parcel. To the rear right is gas easement, utility easement, another parcel that can never get developed. To the left of us is a large shopping center, which is commercial and operating as karate and some other stuff. And this building that we're trying to develop in the back of this 2 acres cannot be seen from the street. So when you drive through, there's our large brick structure that's existing, and this land is elevated, and there's vegetation that's covering, large trees that is covering the back of this building the back of this lot that we're going to develop. From both sides, from the front you can see it as you drive on the street. From the right also, there's huge trees that nobody will be able to see into this parcel. So due to those circumstances, we want to request a special use permit to have these contractor offices built, which there's a large demand in Douglas County for these flex spaces, as they're called. And people are starting to go to Hiram, to Dallas, to other areas where these are being developed, and hence why we see the demand, and we like to bring this to this county.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes.
Michael Gabidas, 419 East Crossville Road in Roswell, Georgia. I'm the civil engineer. I developed the site plan. One of the things I wanted to add to Alex's comments is that the development requirements do require a tree density, a number of trees to be either saved or replanted. So because the building is located in the back, we would utilize what we can with the existing trees to try to keep the building not visible from the road. So that would be our goal, is to use the natural aesthetics instead of applying some, like a brick aesthetic to the building. Because my understanding is that the reason why the county prohibits metal siding but gives the opportunity is that, you know, it's potentially unsightly, or, you know, the owner may just kind of let it go in disarray. But we are going with a reputable manufacturer. That manufacturer does provide like a 50-year warranty on the paint and also on the structure. So we are we are applying additional funds into the building. So I calculated that we would save about $100,000 not adding siding to the building, and I believe that the owner, Alex, would try to pass that savings on to the rent to lower the rent. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing no one move, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the presentations, the questions and answers. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
I have a question for staff, please. So, Mr. Schaefer, is it true that if the applicant would build these flex space using an approved material, such as masonry, brick, they would not have to go through this special use process at all, would they?
You could go through a building permit tomorrow.
Building, so it would fit on the property, what you've seen, and there would be no issue before the Board of Commissioners if they abided by the materials approved?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Based on what the applicant was saying about the structure being hidden behind the previous structure that's there, and it wouldn't be able to see it from the street view of it. And I know now we're talking about, like she talked about, was that if it was brick, we wouldn't have to go through this, but since it's going to be a different type of material, then we have a issue with, well, it's not required for us to have that at this time. So that's all I have. I think I answered my own question. All right.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
The applicant, could you? Have you looked at trying to use another type of material?
Yes, we've seen other material, but all the modern spaces like these flex warehouses that are coming to market are sort of going with this high-end, thick gauge metal construction, and it actually gives off a cool, modern look, and it gives it a, I would say, the new cities that are popping up and you see these constructions, this is how they're going. They're using these thick gauge metal with lots of glass on the front and the garage door, so it creates a cool space where contractors are proud to bring their clients. If you're a designer, it's not like smog emission check metal building. You know, this is a large, professionally erected building with huge I-beams, and the facade is not just, we don't just paint it, right? It comes heat baked in the factory, so the colors that we choose are there with a 50-year warranty. So it's a little different than previous grade metals. So this is sort of how these flex spaces are being built right now, with this thick gauge metal and cool accent features that are inviting. So the brick, you know, as you see, people with the red brick structures are painting them now white and gray and all that. So we don't want to go ahead and sort of go back 5 steps into 1996 and erect the red brick building again, because that's not what the consumer wants. And if I'm the consumer, I'd rather go for a cool modern structure than to go for something that's, you know, a brick that doesn't really pop like this structure would.
Any other questions? Mr. Schaefer, did you have something that you wanted to interject here?
So precisely what he's describing would be allowed in the light industrial district. We are not in a light industrial district. We are an office institutional district. And that's the difference. This is a higher end requirement. We're in a different district. But as I say, there is an architectural requirement in the section of the code that says no metal is allowed in this particular zoning district, and that's for a reason. So just want to clarify. He could do tomorrow, if he were in a light industrial, what he's asking for, or if he wants to put a cladding on the structure, he could have a building permit tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, again, we'll keep this moving. Again, I try to look for, policy is really for staff. So, and really these moments are for the boards can, because they're the highest governing authority at the local level. It's our call. But each of our commission districts are very, very different. I tend to be on the east side, very dense, very commercial, et cetera. It's something that has been inherited, unlike the west, which is, it needs to be thoughtful how it moves and how it's designed and built over time. Now my question is to this situation. All right, first question, do we have any metal buildings right now in that corridor? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, easy. Second, and I know we've asked this before, but if you don't know the exact number, how many metal buildings have we done or made exceptions to, because I think we had this conversation before, recently, that exist in the county?
Can't tell you the number in the county, but it's probably in the dozens we've accepted over the last few years in terms of houses or accessory structures in various residential districts.
Right. And so now, again, my district is unique because it's almost built out. I mean, it's built out to the people that are here. And so there's not that many pockets left for a lot of things. So this is sort of like filler. At some point, it's done. You got to go west. So I'm having to make decisions that's different than my peers. So give me a minute, says, okay, it's filling in. We appreciate the investment. Now, you almost bought it back. You sold it and bought it back there in a minute with your comments, but be sensitive for a minute to the applicant, which is like, yeah, I get it. Now, answer for me, how many plumbers, do we know how many plumber locations and contractor locations, electrician locations that exist in Douglas County like this today? Do you know, Phil?
I would not know off the top of my head.
Roughly? I mean, do we have anybody that caters to these guys?
Well, if you're asking how many building permits we have for local plumbers, I suppose we could get that answer. It's a different sort of search
I understand.
parameter.
I'm listening. I mean, everybody needs housing, whether it's commercial or residential, right?
If you're asking in my opinion of do we need this, I will tell you, yes, we do. I get calls for these kinds of spaces all the time.
That's it. You don't have to tell it, but thank you for offering that up. And I'm going to come back to the standards you talked about, difference between O and I and L and I. And what is the line of demarcation? This is my last one, I'm going to keep it going, which is, okay, it could coexist. It's really up to the board at the end of the day, but as it relates to the buffer trees, site visibility, if an exception was made, would it harm? Could it coexist?
It would be interesting to see if it could coexist because they are proposing a detention pond at the very front of the property, which is currently wooded. That might take away some of the tree cover that would in fact hide the buildings in the back.
Okay, so they're doing it in reverse. So I thought they had the house, wait a minute, say that again?
So there's an existing detention pond they can't tree over in the front yard directly in front of the view shed that would look back upon this structure, which would be to the rear of the property. They're proposing some plantings. There will be some additional elevated plantings because of the highway corridor.
Yep.
So you could mask it potentially. Perhaps you would prefer to say the facade facing the street, just as we do in LI, would be 100% brick, and the rest could be something less elevated. But in our case, the code was very clear. We can't recommend approval of something that violates the code, but that's entirely in your purview to say what we want to split hairs on.
Understood. And again, we have that authority to do so. So we're comfortable in our capacity.
Correct.
So I am. So my question then becomes like, okay, got it. So I guess I'll yield to see if there's anybody willing to, is the applicant willing to make a condition? We've done this before where, okay, I hear you trying to save over there, but you got to go both ways now. You just can't have one way because I'm saving, I'm going to pass it through for the rent. Like, okay, are you listening now? That's called compromise. So are you willing to put a condition in here that gives us a better buffer? The detention pond, I do get. I don't want no Charlie Brown trees, no saplings. That's not good enough. We've had those exceptions where they say we're going to bring in some shrubs in and some trees in. It'd take 40 years and 2 generations for them to even make a difference. So I need a genuine, for a consideration, at least for my vote, I need to know a genuine effort that you're going to come to the middle and meet us halfway. Is the applicant out there?
Yeah.
Or his representative?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so what can you do in this moment to try to meet in the middle to deal with the site visibility first and buffer?
So our initial goal is not to touch the perimeter vegetation that's there, not to touch it at all because the site plan that we're developing is inside of that vegetation. So our initial goal is not to touch that during grading. So the original trees that are buffering the entire property, our goal is to keep them there. Now, if we need to add additional in the front, we will do so, but in no way do we want to touch the vegetation that's there right now. We only need to touch the vegetation that's on the interior of this perimeter.
I understand, but sometimes trees, I lost trees in my front yard because what intentions are, and I get it. And so there's no, again, you got to work with us on this.
We do have a budget for vegetation and to meet the requirements that our engineers made for the trees.
Okay. All right, so trees, but let me just finish my point, but answer my question. I asked you about in the front, a fence or some type of raised buffer versus just a shrubbery, to his point.
Yeah, so one thing I would like to add, so I'm currently developing the site plan, and I've encountered the tree density requirements, and one of my plan is, and it will be reflected when we submit the land disturbance permit, is to keep the trees adjacent to the detention pond. So that would cover the side of the building. So, we could condition to add brick on that side, but with our plan to keep the existing trees next to the detention pond, which it's a very dense, there's about 6-inch to 10-inch thick trees, and they're all spaced about 3-5 feet apart. That would pretty much screen that side of the building. So you wouldn't even really be able to see the side facing the county road.
Phil, if that's true, his statement, would you agree with it? What he just proffered?
If he's offered brick facade to the street face and additional plantings to obscure the building in its entirety, then staff can work with that. I can't recommend approval. Again,
I
it's
understand that.
not code, but you get it.
No, thank you, Phil. All right, did you hear what he just stated? Applicant.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And I mean, we can make a cool brick entry where we, write, welcome to our business park, or put a naming sign that goes high with a waterfall or something if we want to. But we 100% believe that the natural event, you will not be able to see this while you're driving through or standing in front, because this is elevated and but if we need to, yes, we will. But we're pretty sure that this will be blocked and you won't be able to see this from the street.
Understand, but understand,
Commissioner.
we're asking us to make an exception.
Commissioner,
So you,
sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
so, you're asking us to make an exception. So, I hear you, but, for this vote, you got to hear us as well and meet us halfway. So I'm going to yield right now. I think somebody else wants to speak, but also to acknowledge, I'll go with the flow of everybody else. I yield. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, Commissioner Robertson. My question, I was just wanting to know if there was a picture to show the current state of the vegetation where it is.
So here's coming to the property. You see to the right all these trees blocking it. From here, you see the original building right there, far away from the street. And where we're talking about developing is behind that building, behind that tree line, which that tree line is a natural buffer that you should not be able to see this building at all. It should be blocked by this vegetation. The whole perimeter will be blocked like that.
Now, when you say the tree line to the right or the green tree line in the back?
The tree line to the right and the tree line in the back, because this is to the left of the building. This whole tree line is covering. You will not be able to look into the property just like you can't now. And this right here, all those trees you see in the back are still going to stay there because we're developing inside of that perimeter.
So the trees that you see on this picture on the right, that is the current location of the detention pond. So, I mean, normally you don't want trees growing in the detention pond, so we can remove those trees if requested. We could also make some calculations assuming that the detention pond is blocked by some of the trees. But directly behind that detention pond, we would want to keep those trees.
Okay.
And that would be to meet the tree density requirement for the county.
Okay, I was just wondering because I believe, just looking at I wanted to see the optic because for the line of sight, because once it become wintertime and all the leaves, fall off, then does that change this whole optic?
They are, I think like 90% of the trees are pine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I yield.
Any more? Vice Chair.
It's probably, I got a question here for the site plan developer. What is the distance from the vegetation to the residence? You know that distance in regards to how much vegetation is there? Is it 50 feet, 75 feet?
So from the site plan itself, you can see that it's from the far right where the Douglas County seal is to the point at the very top there is 192 feet. So you've got a 15-foot building setback line from that top line down to the building. Would you say 75 feet from the detention pond to the face of the building? Something like that. So there is a tree line, as he says, behind the detention pond between what would be the new building and your line of sight into the property, about 75 feet from that detention pond. I will, fair warning, when we go to DRC, WSA will say, why are there trees in this detention pond? And the engineering will probably require all of that to be removed anyway to serve the additional engineered water capacity for what you're building. So let's not rely on trees in a detention pond.
So you have a 50-foot buffer of tall pines between the back of this building to the residents' homes back there.
Correct, plus the additional parcel that's in between as well. So there's still some trees on that. So the odds are you would not see this from the residential properties to the north. You probably would not be able to see this property from the commercial property to the south.
Okay, but once we clear out their retention pond, which I'm sure they're going to have to do,
It'll have to be
it's
cleared.
going to be visible from the front, yeah. Okay.
Potentially.
All right, I yield, Chairman.
Hello.
To the applicant, so the question was posed to you, would you be in agreement for a condition to put a brick facade on the structure that you are asking to be special permitted as a steel construction site?
If I would put a brick facade on the front of the building? So
That portion that we,
the portion that
that's-
faces the detention pond?
that
Yes.
portion, yes.
Yes, that would be a very small portion because that's only the side of the building. But yes, that would be acceptable. And then, we should, even if that tree line goes away from the front, yes, they would see a brick facade on there.
And I like your idea too of putting a brick entrance.
Monument or something. yeah,
Monument, right, because it will give it, special nice appeal, right? So we're willing to work with you if you're willing to work with us, otherwise it could be a complete no. So we don't want to completely tell you no, but we're willing to work with you if you're willing to work with the county.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful. So are you saying yes to that condition?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I would like, I'll yield, because this is not my district, so. Thank you, I yield. No more questions.
Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do we have a motion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. May I ask
Yes.
staff a question? Mr. Schaefer. So this location is, did you say it's 1,000 feet from the corridor overlay that we dealt with the clock tower earlier?
It's
not in that corridor, but it's 1,000
It
feet
doesn't
out.
face, yeah, correct. Doesn't face, the facade's not on Fairburn, but it's within 680 to 700 feet of Fairburn. And within 1,000 feet, you're subject to that.
And you would not be able to see it from Fairburn?
You won't see it from Fairburn. You'll just see it from West County line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Schaefer, while you're there, if the board decided to approve this, would a condition that read something like the end of the building facing the retention pond would have a brick facade and a monument at the driveway be a good condition?
Entirely under your purview. Yeah, that's what it was. The facade visible from the right-of-way shall be, let me get that out of there. The facade visible from the right-of-way shall be clad in brick. Now, that would just be for the building, the long building. The short building is in fact the monument, and a monument, brick monument structure. Here, I'll read it again. Facade visible from the right-of-way should be clad in brick that substantially matches the existing building. A brick monument of similar material will be installed at the front of the building. Just the facade, however, that faces
Okay,
the
would
street.
the applicant be agreeable to that condition? If it were proposed?
Yes, so right now, we're discussing the first long building, so that one is facing the street, and I agree with those conditions. I just don't want to miss that second building. That's going to be facing the street, which should be hidden by vegetation, but that... Okay, yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, the public hearing's been closed on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board?
I'll make a motion to approve S 2023-39 with the change as agreed upon with the applicant that the staff presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call on a vote for the S 2023-39 motion as stated with the condition. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, S 2023-39 comes to you with a recommendation for approval with the condition that was agreed upon with the applicant.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion? Point of order? Point of order? Yes.
All right. Just for the record, I wanted to be read by staff. What was the condition?
The condition that we have is the facade visible from the right-of-way shall be clad in brick that substantially matches the existing building. A brick monument of similar material will be installed on the front of the building.
So that's front of the building as well as the monument. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It includes both pieces.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Mr. Chair, I'm going to move forward to make a motion to approve S 2023-39 as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board with the condition as stated by staff just now.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We have a unanimous decision for the motion.
Thank you very much. That's going forward there on that. I think it'll look good. Next agenda item, Mr. Schaefer.
So, Mr. Chairman, this evening, I had a request from Elite Engineering that Z 2023-40 and S 2023-41 be tabled until the August meeting. I believe that the representative is here. The applicant, the owner, is not in town right now. There were some issues raised at the DRC that they would like some time to work out with staff as far as siting, as far as dimensionality and things. So they're asking for this to be tabled. Staff is ready to move forward if the board, if the commissioners wish to move forward. Our recommendation, of course, is denial because of several reasons, but if you would like to table it till August, that's what they're seeking.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. Point of here is Rob Thomas, our vice chair, abstained from this last item. If Mr. Thomas could come back into the room.
Was that 2023-39 that he abstained from, or was that? Okay.
He left the room when we started. Somebody might need to let him in that door. Okay, Planning and Zoning staff, you've heard the recommendation from, coming in from the applicant on this particular matter, and you've heard Mr. Schaefer's presentation. Do I have a motion? Do you wish to table this matter or continue?
Mr. Chairman, can't we also deny it? Isn't that an option as well? Or do we have to go through the whole process to deny it?
You will have to open the public hearing.
We'll have to open the
In
public
full
hearing and go through the
They've simply asked.
procedures.
Yeah, they simply asked to be tabled until
But
August.
if I don't have a motion to table it, we will move on.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kurt Nicholson. I make a motion to table application Z 2023-40 and the corresponding S 2023-41 to the next meeting. I think it's August.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to table this matter until the August 1st, 2023 meeting. Do I have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Everyone wishing to table the meeting on the Z 2023-40 and S 2023-41 until the August 1st meeting, please signify by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Mr. Chairman, comes to you with a recommendation to table Z 2023-40 and S 2023-41 until the August 1st, 2023 meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table Z 2023-40 and also S 2023-441 until the August 1st, 2023 meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We have a unanimous vote to table it. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schaefer, our next agenda item, please.
Next agenda item is special use S 2023-42 Pearl Salon Suites LLC. The request is for a special use permit to allow salon suites in the OIC Office Institutional with conditions, zoning located at 680 Thornton Way in Lithia Springs. The conditions are there's an existing office complex on the property. The site's developed with office suites in 2 buildings and the arrangement of common parking areas between. The initial subdivision for this property was titled Thornton Business Center and was approved in 1985, recorded at Book 13, page 189 in the public records. The proposal is to operate a salon business, allowing multiple stylists to utilize salon chairs as independent contractors, leasing the chairs and keeping their own appointment schedules like suites in a larger office building sometimes do. And the larger office space would be shared space for common entry and waiting area and breaks and everything else. There are no planning concerns raised by this issue. This is a zoning map showing the office institutional district and the surrounding commercial. Here's the site survey. This is a picture of the 2 office buildings. And again, there's the office building that she's proposing to do it in and the parking area, and that's Thornton Way on the left. The criteria for special use permit were evaluated, and they all are in agreement with this, and staff is recommending approval with the following findings and condition: that the use, A, will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and B, the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. The conditions are: 1, interior remodeling of the premises may require building permit review and approval from the county building department. Any modifications to the building exterior or parking areas would require a development review committee, DRC review and authorization prior to initiating the changes. And 2, any stylist chair suite engaging in microblading would require a permit review and approval from the county health department. That's a special request from the health department itself. It's a different category of salon operation that they actually have purview over. With that, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Shaniqua Garcia, and the address is 680 Thornton Way, Lithia Springs, 30122. And I am asking for permission to utilize this space as a salon suite.
Okay, anything else? Okay, if you would stand by, I'm sure we'll have some questions in a minute. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total time of 15 minutes allocated. After that speech, seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or Ms. Garcia?
Or Curriott, could you please step up to the podium? So you say salon suite, so what are you referring to? Will each one have an individual room, or will it be open spacing with a specific area?
No, so it will now have open spaces. Each of the individual independent contractors would have a private suite where they would have access to open and close, their suite, so it would be private for them to conduct their business. So it'd be, the only thing that's shared is the lobby area, break room, bathrooms, things like that, but everything else will be individual and private, kind of like a co-working space, but for beauty professionals.
Okay, what would be the hours of operation?
Our hours of operation for our business is 6 a.m. to midnight.
6 a.m. to midnight?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will it have, security?
Yes.
Or will it be cameras, security on site, or?
Correct. So there will always be a call box, and so the doors will always be locked at all times. And everyone who accessed the building would need to go to the call box and call their specific beauty professional that they're looking for, and that individual would buzz them in from their phone. So the doors will be locked at all times, and there are cameras inside and on the exterior of the facility.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Okay.
Rob Thomas, I have a couple questions.
Yes,
So, will you adhere to the conditions that was read in by staff?
Yes.
Because one of the conditions is, I know you have to do a build out. It sounds like you're gonna make a salon suite, so you need build out the individual rooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you will have to get your
Permits and
plans
plans.
approved and all that.
Mm-hmm.
As well as, another question about your setup, is gonna be a common area for your bowls, or you'll have it in each suite?
No, there will be all inside of each of the suites. So currently, the space is office spaces, so there are already rooms that are existing. Some rooms are a little bit too large, and so those are the rooms that we're proposing to add walls to make them a little bit smaller, but there's not too many, it's like an open space, and we're building up a whole bunch of spaces.
Still, even with that, just realize you will have to get permits for.
Correct. Yes,
your
for plumbing,
and-
MEPs,
and
yes.
There you go. You
Yes,
got it.
yes, sir.
All right. Is your first venture?
No, we actually have, this will be our 5th location, and then we just franchised last year with
Right.
4 franchisees, so I'm pretty familiar with the
Good,
process.
good.
Yes, sir.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. That's the only
problem.
question I had.
Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, since you have said you agree with the 2 conditions, I will turn it over to Board of Commissioners for questions they may have.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
None.
We have no questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one question. What is microblading?
Microblading is a form similar to tattooing. It's permanent tattooing of the eyebrows, and so they put like strokes of eyebrow, so it's like permanent makeup basically, but falls under the governance of tattooing, which is, why the health department has to kind of oversee that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
yield.
I might need some of those. We have no further questions.
Thank you very much. You can take your seat, Ms. Garcia. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussions, the questions and answers. Do I have a motion, please?
Board Curry motions to approve a request for a special use permit, for S 2023-42, a special request for a special use permit to allow salon suites in the OIC office institution with conditions zoning located at 680 Thornton Way, Lithia Springs, 30122.
Rob Thomas, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote to approve S 2023-42. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. S 2023-42 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do you have a motion?
So moved to approve as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? We are unanimous.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Garcia, best of luck to you. Mr. Schaefer, next item, please.
Next item is a rezoning Z 2023-43 for Mr. George Thomason. The request is for a rezoning from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to RLD, Residential Low Density, for residential purposes located on Simon Road. The property itself is on the south side of Simon Road and just north of the Anawake intersection. Property is not developed. It is partially wooded. He's proposing to rezone out of the planned unit development, as this property is a remnant of a larger piece of property that was rezoned for the subdivision across the street. And the street severed these 2 pieces, a tiny piece left over on the east side and a gigantic piece that became the subdivision on the west side. I'll show you the map here really quickly. There are no planning concerns raised by this. It's simply an issue of can we clarify what rules he will be able to develop under, and rather leave him in the PUD where we don't know what rules he might be subject to. We're asking that he be rezoned to RLD. This is the aerial map of the property showing you the remnant and the subdivision across the street. This is what it looks like in context. So on the left is the larger piece that was rezoned many years ago. And on the right, as you can see on the left-hand side, is that very tiny sliver kind of severed off by the road, but it was a part of the original deeded property. And so, again, it's a remnant. This is what it looks like when you're looking up Simon Road. On the right is the property behind the tree line. On the left will be the subdivision. This is looking down at his property from the entrance to that subdivision. And this is looking south along Simon Road with the property, again, on the left. Staff reviewed the zoning criteria. It meets all of the criteria. Staff is recommending approval with just the findings to rezone from PUD to RLD with the following findings. A, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan. Categorization of this property is within the suburban living area, incorporating mixed residential uses. B, the uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are specifically compatible with the surrounding properties. And C, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for an allocated time of 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
My name is George Thomason of Douglas County, Georgia, and I've owned this piece for 20 years, and I've just asked y'all to approve this where I can get a fair price for it.
Okay. How much is this? A little over an acre?
0.8 acres.
0.8 acres.
0.82.
Okay. Thank you, sir. If you just stand by. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions? No questions here, sir.
No questions or comments. Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Rob Thomas, I'd like to make a motion to approve application Z2 2023-43, request to rezone from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to RLD, Residential Low Density, for residential purposes located on Simon Road.
Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving Z 2023-43, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chair, Z 2023-43 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve Z 2023-43 for request for rezoning from PUD to RLD for residential purposes located on Simon Road.
Second.
All in favor? We have a unanimous decision.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomason, you got your zoning change there, sir. Best of luck selling the property. Mr. Johnson, I believe you are our next agenda item.
Yes, the next case is S2023-44, a special use permit. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow a dog kennel located at Pool Mill Road, Winston 30187. Before you have the zoning map. As you can see, the highlighted parcel is zoned RA, as well as the surrounding parcels. And before you, I have an aerial image of the property. The property is highlighted in red. And before you, I have a street view of the property. The applicant will be using a shared driveway, and the subject property is to the left. As you can kind of see in the distance, there is a barn already on the property. There isn't, well, the barn is the principal structure in this case. Before you, I have the site plan / survey. So the applicant is requesting a dog kennel. As you can see on the image to the right, there is a 200 stream buffer for the stream that is going through the property. That is a request of the zoning impact from WSA, as well as our engineering department. The applicant is proposing to fence this parcel in, this part of the parcel in right in front of the barn, and is proposing to redevelop the barn into a dog kennel. Based on the criteria of the special use permit, it does meet the criteria. Staff recommends approval of the requested special use permit S2023-44 with the following findings, conditions, and directive to staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land use plan or intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare with the following conditions. The applicant must keep dogs indoors from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., but staff will be allowed to take individual animals out for breaks outside of these hours. 2, dog waste must be picked up immediately and disposed in designated closed lid cans and taken to the dump bi-weekly unless utilizing an approved on-site waste management system. 3, all fencing is to be installed with a 8-foot opaque fence and 2 rows of evergreen screening trees as determined by a Douglas County arborist. He shall work with arborists to ensure that the plan and installation meet the criteria of the Unified Development Code. If future nuisance complaints arise, then additional landscape screening may be required and the arborist must be consulted again. 4, vehicles during the day must be parked at the proposed kennel, and any loading and unloading of the dogs will be done inside. 5, the applicant must obtain their state kennel operation license of the Georgia Department of Agriculture prior to obtaining the occupational tax license from Douglas County. 6, the applicant must renew the state operating license annually before being permitted to renew their Douglas County business license. 7, the applicant must have a level 3 soil report done in order to issue an on-site sewage management system permit. And 8, the applicant may not build within a 200 undisturbed stream buffer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. That's your report. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for an allocated time of 15 minutes, and that includes the applicant or the applicant's representative. You'd state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Kyle Welker, and I own the property at Pool Mill Road.
Okay, Mr. Welker.
I want to start with saying how much I really want to be a part of this community. I've heard the community's concerns with open ears, and I want to say that I do understand where you're coming from. Growing up on my parents' farm in Tipton, Georgia, I know and understand what this place means to you. We've worked with the planning and zoning to come up with these conditions that should address the concerns. And our intent is to meet and exceed these conditions set forth by the Commission and the Department of Agriculture. I'm not just an investor in this business. This is not a side job. I'm the owner and operator. I will be there every day and available to the neighbors for anything that comes up. This is our livelihood, and it means the world to my wife and me. This is the place we want to spend our time, and if we're lucky enough to have children, this is the place where we want to raise them. If you want my cell phone number, you can have it. Find me after this, and I'll happily share it. The reason the business has been successful is because I can personally manage every detail of this business, day in and day out. I have an enormous amount of responsibility to run a business of integrity and maintain the health and safety of our pets and neighbors. None of this is taken lightly. And I do want to say this, it does not further our personal or business goals to have yappy dogs making noise or anything less than an immaculate facility where a dog could get sick. That's what I will do every day to ensure none of this happens and will agree with the conditions that are set forth. I have no doubt the neighbors here will be the best form of code enforcement, and on the flip side, I would hope that we can work together to take care of each other. This, I hope, gives the community the peace of mind to accept the business into your neighborhood. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Welker. Before you leave, you did agree to the 8 conditions that were read in.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, my name is Alan Campbell. I reside at 4985 Smokestone Drive. I've been a resident of Douglas County, Douglasville, for 16 years, and I've known Kyle for 2 years. When the applicant described his business model to me, I realized right away that it was unique, somewhat of a high standard that he had. But when he described the vision that he had for the Pool Mill property, I also realized that he had a very deep compassion for the animals and a genuine concern that his business is friendly to the neighbors, it's respectful to the land, and it is a value to the community. So I'm just here advocating based off of the good man that I know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Campbell. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening to the board. My name's Jason Deere. I'm both a good friend of Mr. Welker, and I'm also an attorney at a firm in Atlanta. I do business litigation, and I took it upon myself to come with Kyle here and say a few things in his regard. My understanding through a search of county records is that the land at issue was previously described as used as a horse farm and as general recreational land. The other thing I saw when I looked through some county records is that special use permits have been issued for dog care facilities in Douglas County in the past that are similar, if not identical, to Kyle's proposed use. Here's what I know about Kyle. He's not an investor in this business from Atlanta. He's a one-man show, and he's been working towards building this business at this location for years now. We talked about it probably for 2 or 3 years. Once he's up and running, you will probably, neighbors, be able to contact him easier than you could one of your other neighbors because he's going to be there every single day. He's not bringing in strangers to run this business. He's running this business himself, and he will be here and a part of the community. In terms of the process so far, Douglas County Planning and Zoning staff members have done a great job working up this request. What they say in their report should put everyone in the vicinity of Kyle's property at ease. I want to stress this isn't some old school dog kennel where there are going to be chutes, chain metal chutes where dogs stay. These dogs are inside all night. They're let out to run. They're kept in great condition, and the individuals who pay for this service pay a good amount of money for the service because of what Kyle provides for the dogs. We know, I know that neighbors often have a keen interest in development on adjacent properties. But it's also clear that neighbors' concerns need to be weighed against the impingement of rights of the property owner. In terms of noise and visual disturbances, I don't know of any evidence that has been presented indicating that that will occur. In regards to economic harm to any of the neighbors, I have not seen that as well, and that's why we ask that the Planning and Zoning's recommendation be approved.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. I believe we may have a number of people that wish to speak on this. If we do, and you're following somebody that said something you agree with, the best course would be to state your name and address and that you agree with what's been said and let the next person talk, because we do have 15-minute limitation. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is John Baker. I reside at 679 Cowan Road, Temple, but I own the 38 acres right downstream, bordering 700 feet of this property, and I also own 3,191 feet of frontage in Mobley Creek that flows through this property. We want to thank everyone on the committee, on the commissioners, Planning and Zoning Department. We understand you are all tasked with protecting the integrity and the direction of the county going in the future, and we appreciate that. We get that. We sure do. With respect to this applicant, we are totally 100% opposed. It will be difficult for all the community. By the way, everybody here in the opposition, please stand. For us to get all of our thoughts across to you in this time frame, so we have a packet we've delivered to you, we've emailed to let everybody know where we stand on this. So the proposal of this business in this operation coming forth that it's not agricultural or rural just doesn't make sense. The property is zoned RA. This is not a farming, gardening, or livestock business being proposed. It is an absentee owner. He lives in Atlanta. We've been told requesting to leave an unattended business for a profit. This will impact the neighbors around them. Prior approvals for this type of business have been a nuisance to the neighbors. There are a couple of them here today in those locations, despite the conditions placed upon them. Enforcement is difficult and is done after the fact.
Excuse me, John.
Yes.
Allison, are you showing the owners those files?
Certainly.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat your question?
Are you showing those files that these people tried to give me, or are you showing them to the owners?
So we're sharing them with the applicant because it's information that was not submitted to the record in advance, just to let them know the content, of it. And to me, it looks like what they've submitted are just the letters of opposition that have been submitted. So we'll make the applicant aware, and then we will ask the board if the board would like to have them submitted.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Excuse me. Who compiled these?
We have sent those to the planning and zoning. They've been emailed to them. The majority of that are the letters that was attached that we have sent to the planning and zoning who had an opportunity to share them.
And
we've also shared them with the county commissioners last week or over the weekend.
I would agree that is what it looks like. I'm sorry?
Is it okay if those people see those letters?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
You go right ahead.
If you want the well
I was just...
Yeah, no, we just want to, again, for the sake of full transparency, right.
You took it from me and you gave it to them,
Well, so again,
I
just-
sold up a little bit. I'm sorry about that.
just to clarify, for the sake of full transparency, the record suggests that you should make your decision based on the information that's in the record, right? So that's kind of what's going on here. The public can't present to you without it kind of going and being vetted through the record, other than the time that they speak in favor and opposition. So we just needed to see the content of it to understand what it was. And again, we will, after the public hearing, we will certainly, bring this back and ask for the approval of the chairman to be submitted to you at the meeting. Does that kind of help clarify the process?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry.
It was just a point of order. So again, we want to finish the public hearing. He just wanted a point of clarity on this because again, you guys were giving stuff out and I hadn't even got it. So, I mean, again, that's don't do that. All right, I'm just making a point. I'm trying to help my chair through this moment right now. We're in the middle of a public hearing. So, Allison, thank you for responding so we can get back on task.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Chair, y'all finish the hearing. Keep us on track, and then we'll come back later. Sir, thank you.
Did I answer the question that was asked?
You did, thank you.
For that community. Okay, thank you very much. May I continue?
Go ahead,
Okay,
take up your
thanks.
2
Awesome,
minutes.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, where's prior approvals to this type of business, I'm sort of repeat my last couple of lines because we have things going on. Couple of conditions, despite the conditions placed on them, enforcement is difficult and is after the fact. We will respond directly to some of the 9 factors the planning and zoning commented on, saying that they were good. Have you ever heard a neighbor's dog bark? If you hear one dog barking, you'll hear more dogs barking. It will be amplified many times over. This property, the Jordan property, was used as residential rural agricultural for years. He knew this when he bought the property. The nearest zoned commercial area is 1.4 miles away, driving 2 miles. There are better locations with proper zoning in place to operate a business of this nature, because this is a business. And this applicant, he can use them. This business will impact the welfare of the community, which is one of the factors. Another issue is the impact on property values. As a Georgia real estate agent and broker since 1986, the impact to nearby owners will be detrimental, resulting in probably a lower tax basis, lower tax coffers, because the values go down a little bit. However, they will increase their value because of where they stand, because of that. The choice is to maintain property values for this group. This use would also be considered a nuisance, regardless of the special use avenue available. If the county could have seen fit to have allowed it in the first place, there would have been a zoning already allowing this on this property. A compromise does not need to be reached. Please do not approve the special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes.
I'll stand on my tippy toes and talk loud. Good evening, commissioners and the board, and we certainly appreciate your time. And my remarks will address some of the remaining factors reflected in the planning and zoning's recommendation.
Did you give us your name and address?
I would gladly do that. Richard Dodd, 4811 Pool Mill Road, Douglasville, Georgia, 30135. Thank you, sir. Sorry about that. Starting with factor number 3. While it's acknowledged that the location of the proposed special use for a dog kennel is not consistent with the overall development character of the area, the recommendation concludes with the special conditions that it will have minimal impact on surrounding properties. As you'll hear from my neighbors, this is simply not true. The impacts are many, and none of them are minimal. Factor number 5. Just to clarify, the driveway in the photo that was presented is currently not being used by the property owner. Now, if that intends to be the case, that's fine, but that's not what's currently going on. Factor number 7, the recommendation states there is no anticipated impact of light, glare, or odor. However, there may be an increase in noise due to the nature of dogs barking. Commissioners, there absolutely will be an increase in the noise level in our neighborhood. And this nuisance and its negative impacts discussed by others is our primary concern. Factor number 8, the recommendation concludes that it is anticipated that the hours and manner of the operation of the special use are not likely to adversely affect surrounding properties. Commissioners, again, this subjective conclusion is simply incorrect and not validated. It is unclear how one could reach such a conclusion when the evidence provided by the applicant's existing kennel operations and from the East Union Hill neighbors are clearly contrary. We would love to have the Welkers as our neighbors, but we do not want their kennel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? You would state your name and address for the record, and you've got 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Cindy Marlowe, and my husband Sam and I, we reside at 4733 Pool Mill Road. And as you can see by the outpouring of our neighbors, we're completely and totally opposed to the existence and operation of this dog kennel business in our serene community. In regards to the Planning and Zoning Board list of factors, number 1 being, is this consistent with the stated purpose of the zoning district for which it is located? And we say no. A residential agricultural district is to promote a suitable environment for large lot suburban family life. Agricultural, including the raising of cattle, horses, chickens, dogs are certainly not considered livestock, nor agriculture activity due to the Douglas County codes or the IRS codes for livestock. Why consider a disruption for our neighbors as an applicant who is neither a resident of this county nor does this kennel provide a valuable service to our community residents? These dogs are supposed to be shuttled in from outside of Douglas County. These conforming zoning rules are for residential and not commercial use, which this is, a business use. There is no need for a special permit here, but a desire for an income-producing business to be located here, a business which he intends to grow. The fact is that we live in the most protected and regulated area of this county, our watershed drinking water. The Dog River Basin area is subject to many special residential building codes, setbacks, and other regulations. We even have to show proof of servicing and pumping our septic tanks periodically. Dog River is the county's drinking water source and is located within a mile of this property. Mobley Creek runs directly through the subject property and borders or runs through several other properties along this represented here today. And then it's straight into the Dog River, which is less than a mile from us. In conclusion, no, we do not believe this use is consistent with our RA zoning that's in place, nor is it for the protection of our drinking water for the Dog River or future development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marlowe. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you've got 2 minutes.
John Wendell, 4847 Pool Mill Road. So my family, including my now hospice mom, have lived on Pool Mill Road for 33 years. Many of us here today have lived here longer than 33 years in that area. We all made significant life and financial investments based on our confidence in the county plan to keep the integrity of the highly regulated Dog River Basin. The applicant seeks approval of special use. In other words, exception to normal use. He makes commercial property investment at a residential price without contingencies. Who does that? He then wants to convince us that with a few conditions, we should permit his unwanted and unplanned use. At the informational meeting, Planning and Zoning's approach was to seek a compromise, to identify acceptable conditions that would make everybody happy. Makes sense. That will not be possible here. As stated, this is not consistent with the overall development character of the area. This remains true regardless of any conditions. As a community, we got together, we started to talk about conditions. We wrote them all down. We drafted a bunch. Limits on the number and types of dogs, noise levels, remediation, response times, visitors and inspections, health and environment conditions, employees and background checks, etc. After thoughtful consideration, we concluded that even with these conditions, it does not change the fact that this is clearly non-conforming and sets a precedent that cannot be undone. It will, over time, transform the neighborhood and the county plan. Enforcement is nearly impossible, no matter what you look at those conditions. Residential property values will be depressed. Any approval will only lead to a stronger vested interest argument if he ever needs to be revoked or denied. This is not 5 show horses and a few cows that Joe Jordan had. Joe Jordan lived on that property. This is an enterprise for purely commercial profit benefit. We have talked to a lot of those that are living near the kennels. Similar conditions are in place. Some of those are here today from East Union Hill. As the business grows, so do the negative impacts. And then finally, assurances that Mr. Welkner provides contradict available evidence. We provided some of that evidence in the packets within our letters we'd like you to take a look at. Obviously, Mr. Welkner loves dogs. He just doesn't want to live next to a lot of them.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We have about, 5 minutes left? Just under 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead, sir. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff LeMay, L-E-M-A-Y. My address is 7726 Pool Mill Road. When I earned my doctorate in education several years ago, the university that I attended at the time allowed me access to their research library for the rest of my life. It's a pretty cool benefit. And so I did some research on dog kennels, and particularly dog feces. Dog feces is not cow manure. Dog feces is not equivalent to horse manure. They have more nitrogen and they have more phosphorus per ounce than the typical manure does because they eat refined, store-bought food. Cows eat the grass. So the manure is not equivalent as dog feces. Dog feces, 1 gram of dog feces contains 23 million bacteria, viruses, worms, and other disease-causing agents. 1 gram. By the way, there's 423 grams in 1 pound of poop, of dog poop. A typical 40-pound dog defecates 3/4 of a pound of poop a day. If you have 20, 30, 40, 100 dogs, if you have 100 dogs, that's 2 tons of dog poop each month. Let me just ask you, in the wildest dreams, is somebody going to actually pick up every little piece of poop? No, they're not. It's going to eventually go down to Mobley Creek. It's eventually going to get into our watershed. The EPA has said that you have 100 dogs in 3 days, they can destroy 20 miles of watershed. That's an EPA study. I mean, there is no doubt that this is bad for our neighbors, bad for our community. We're the new people. We don't even live there yet. We're renovating our building, our house right now. So I appreciate the ability to get to know our neighbors, and this is a community within a community. It really is. We are Douglasville. We are Pool Mill Road. We're not some dude who parachutes in 8 to 5, whatever it's going to be, and isn't there on the weekends. So he's not going to be there all the time. He's a nice guy. Well, I enjoyed meeting him. I talked to him after our preliminary meeting. Nice fellow. But it is not right for us to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in our property to let it go downhill because of dog count. Thank you. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name's Jesse Mitchell. I'm a physician. I worked in the ER at Carrollton and Villarica for 35 years. I've lived at 4839 Pool Mill Road for 35 years. The area is near and dear to me. People that live there are not young kids. These are older people. My wife is on 3 immunosuppressive drugs. Plopping a dog kennel down there is going to contaminate the environment no matter how carefully you place it. We moved into the area with expectations that it would be large residential. We've all made our lives around that. And we've protected it. And this is not something we want in our area. I took the trouble to talk to 3 veterinarians. We have a veterinarian in the area, but he just simply could not be here tonight. The veterinarians, 2 of which my daughter works with at a large 12-vet clinic, said, don't let that happen in your area. It is unhealthy for the community. I'll leave it at that since I don't have much time. This is not something we want, and it is not something that should be forced on us. You wouldn't want it in your neighborhood. We don't want it in our neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We still have a few minutes left. 36 seconds. One more.
How many?
You're it.
My name is Carol Landers. I reside at 5001 Pool Mill Road, and we built our home there 45 years ago with the intentions of staying there. This is a terribly hard thing for us. It surrounds us. He's on 2 sides of our property. He enters right beside us, and the entire back side of our property is on the dog side. The pen is going to be right in our backyard. It's just more than we can handle. Please don't approve this and let us have a little quality of life while we have it left. Please, you wouldn't want it in your backyard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That will conclude the public hearing as time has run out. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of the applicant, please.
We have questions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Walker, I understand that you're going to be on site. Do you know what percentage of time you're talking about spending on site here on a regular basis?
I would be there every day from, normal business hours, and somebody will be staying there overnight, and that would be me for the foreseeable future. So I would say, you know, pretty much around the clock, with the exception of a couple trips back and forth to Atlanta.
Now, it's my understanding also you have another kennel somewhere else already up and running. Is that correct?
It would be the same one that we would be moving the operation to the suggested property.
So you're moving it from Covington or Conyers or whatever?
Yes, sir.
I guess this is more a question for staff. Mr. Wait. All right, so this is a new type of building for me, Mr. Williams, and I'm not sure what type of building this would be with a residential component inside of a dog's kennel. How does this work? What does it fall under? What kind of regulations are we getting into? Or do we even have anything to regulate this? I mean, anything in the code allows this or doesn't allow this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the
Is there
end of
anything in
what
the
you said.
code that would prevent this or promotes this? Either way, I'm not familiar with it.
So based on section 319, kennels in non-commercial zoning districts shall be conducted on lands no less than 10 acres and ultimately will require a special use permit. As far as regulating goals, the Planning and Zoning Department is directed to conduct administrative review of the property during the 1-year anniversary month of this approval, if it is approved, and to present a report if the use is not established and/or the property is not in full compliance with the Douglas County Unified Development Code and/or all of the conditions of approval. If the use is not in full compliance, staff will schedule the permit for a show cause hearing at the next public meeting to allow the applicant to show cause, while the special use should not be revoked.
I guess I get that, and I heard you say it before, but what I'm getting at here is you gotta have a residential structure for somebody to live in, and we have certain codes and regulations that affect that. Is this gonna go through DRC, is this determined by DRC or regulated by DRC, or when does this come into play?
So when the applicant goes through DRC, that's when that will be regulated. As far as someone, having a living quarters on the property.
So in this case, and whether it's Allison or whomever, is this going to be a full-size house that has to be built on this property to go along with this kennel? Because we don't allow, we have restrictions on barn sizes and residents in barns, residents in pool houses. I don't think we've ever been down this road before as far as somebody living in a barn on a dog kennel.
So let me just clarify, from staff's perspective, we wouldn't treat this as a residence in a barn. We would treat this basically as a business that has 24-hour staffing. So in terms of like fitting it out as a full residential structure, we're not aware of any plans to do that. This would be similar to other daycare facilities that have a caretaker that stay, overnight on the property, but it's not going to be anybody's legal residency, for purposes of, say, voter registration or anything like that. There would basically be a space where the 24-hour staff, would have something equivalent to their office. But if that answers your question, we're not treating the barn as a single-family residence. We're treating the kennel as a special use permit for an agriculturally oriented business, just as you would have caretakers, for any agriculturally oriented business. There would be space that would be built out for that reason, but not as a permanent long-term residence in the barn. Does that answer your question?
It does, it helps some, but I guess I'm just not aware of any requirement to have a private individual stay overnight on a barn to maintain cows or whatever.
There is no requirement for an individual to stay overnight here. This is something that the applicant is saying that is how he will conduct his business. But there is no requirement, that there has to be somebody there 24 hours on the property.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for the applicant or query. I have a question for. Now, I know one of the residents brought up about the feces, removing the dog poop. And it's going to be a lot of dog poop. Do you know how many dogs are you recommending having at that location? And the second question to that is, how are you going to be able to remove all of that dog poop? And how will it be done?
Yes, sir. So the Department of Agriculture, who we have gotten a kennel license for in the past, requires that it's all picked up in the disposable bags. The bags are placed in a larger trash bag and container and removed by a trash service. So it's, based on the conditions, people will be out there all the time, and as soon as it hits the ground, it's being picked up and placed into a sealed receptacle,
Okay.
as somebody would do if they're walking their dog down the street.
Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir, I have a question for you. Do you intend to build your full-time home on this property?
Eventually, that is our dream. And we don't have building plans to do that, but that has always been our long-term goal.
So you have an existing kennel on the other side of I-20, you say?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're going to bring those dogs to Douglas County from your location where you are now?
So we are currently transporting the dogs from, I guess, closer to the Atlanta area to the property that is on the east side of Atlanta. So our clients, in a large part, would stay the same. We're just bringing them another direction.
And so why are you abandoning your existing location and bringing them to Douglas County?
We're leasing the other property, and we had been looking for property for a couple years, and it was just beautiful, and thought it was something that was a good investment.
It is very beautiful land out there. Okay, thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Hey, I have a question.
I have a question.
Remember, stay up, we got several questions, I'll stay up here. You go ahead.
What's the capacity?
So the capacity right now would be, we're trying, or in our business plan, it was an average of 25 dogs. So the capacity would be 30 to 35 on any given day. Some days or nights, there may not be any dogs staying there, but the total capacity would be 30 to 35.
All right, thank you.
What type of services will you be providing? Like washing, anything else?
It's not grooming, it would just be, we would offer a bath with a water hose before the dogs go home, and training, just obedience training for the dogs that are staying there.
So how long have you owned this property?
A couple months, I think
So you bought it with the intent to do this, obviously, is that true?
Yes, sir, that was part of our vision, as part of a bigger goal, but in order to, pay for the property and the note, this was, what we wanted to continue our business to, with the dog board.
Okay, so that was your intent to, when you first bought it, saw the land, hey, this be good for my kennel, and live, possibly, but definitely the business was part of the decision-making.
Yes, sir, it was, and the large, a big factor was the building that was already there. So, we had looked at other properties in the area that may have been bare, and to build the same structure that is there, in today's climate, would have cost, as much as what the entire property costs this one, with building costs and just having a building that's built, extremely well.
So you anticipate all this opposition to the kennel?
I did not anticipate quite the opposition that we have, and, I understand that it's really up to me that if we were approved, that we're gonna just, hold up our end of the bargain. It's, out of sight, and intend for it to be out of mind for the neighbors.
One more question. How long have you operated your other facility?
So we started the business in 2018, and I've been at the current property for 2.5 years.
Okay, so you've been in different locations?
Yes, sir.
during this time
And
period.
I'd like to point out at none of the previous 2 locations have we ever had any noise complaints, and have been, very friendly with the neighbors,
Okay.
who were
All right.
also skeptical when we got there.
Okay, so they were skeptical, so you anticipate people there to be skeptical, huh, where you are now? I mean, I would think that you would, I don't know, it just seems to me that you would have thought that it would have been some type of pushback with what you want to do in that location. prior. But nevertheless, I'm just curious about your model and your thought process there. So I think that's the only question I have. So 2 years at the current location, and then so you've been doing it at different locations throughout since 18, you're saying?
Yes, sir. We've had one location prior to that.
Okay. You know, there's another kennel not too far down the road from there, right?
I was made aware of that at the community meeting.
Okay. You gotta do your research, man.
Well, it's
You know,
not-
I mean, I use that one. That's why I know about it.
The
Because when I
address-
drove it past it to get to that land, I was like, there's just one right here.
Well, the
But
address-
anyway, just so
I
you
searched
know.
it, and it does not come up.
It didn't come up? Okay.
No.
Was there? 'Cause I
No,
used it.
no, I've now seen it, but just searching for kennels in Douglas County, it did not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's one question.
I have one question. At the present location that you have your kennel at, do you stay at that location as well or near that location?
There's, one of my employees is renting a house, or somebody that was renting a house lives on that same street. So he is not on the property, but within a half a mile.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Any other questions, planning and zoning?
Are we going to be able to see those that they presented so that we can kind of get a speculation of some of the views that the people in the community has about this?
Sure. So again, in abundance of transparency, we want to make sure that everything is in the record, you know, is available for review.
Okay.
So that's part of the reason, again, just to clarify, you know, somebody can't just come hand something to the boards,
Okay.
you know, without the permission of the chairman. So
Okay.
in this instance, we don't have enough for both boards. Now, I have looked at what's in the record and conferred with our clerk. There is an article that I don't recognize as already being in the record, but generally speaking, most of what is in here seems to be the information that is available online. So there is the summary chart of letters of opposition that we have received that our clerk compiled, as well as copies of what appear to be the majority of the letters that are already online. I didn't do a one-for-one comparison, but that seems to be the majority of what is submitted. And then there does appear to be a document that takes the criteria from our staff report and provides an analysis from the community.
Okay.
So again, we can put this in the record for the meeting. In terms of presenting it to the board, I would point out I'm deficient in copies, right? So I would be concerned that you would be looking at information that is not a part of the record because I don't have enough to share it with everybody here this evening. But the majority of it does seem to be information that is already available publicly on the website. So it will be up to the chairman of the various boards if they would like to have this presented to members at this time.
Okay.
Is
well, I'll
that
pass.
the 23 letters that are included in the packet that we got?
Yeah.
Correct. I didn't count one for one, but it does appear to be many of the letters that were printed off the website.
I think it was 23
and included.
opposed and 2 in favor.
It does appear to include both opposition and proponents in the packet of the letter. So again, best guess, again, I don't like having the information presented at the last minute before we can vet it, but best guess is it does look like it's mostly information that is already in the public record.
That we received, I saw when we strolling through.
You have received that
Yes.
in your packet.
Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure it was
With the
anything different.
exception of, like I said, an article that appears to be about roadside litter patrols
Okay.
from 1993, and then what appears to be a typed response to the criteria in the code and why it is generally not meeting the criteria.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure there was anything different than what we were looking at previously. Okay.
Right, doesn't
Let's send
appear
it
to be,
through.
but
Okay.
I'll defer to the chairman if they would like to have this kind of distributed among the
Okay.
various.
I'll let them do their thing.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Duncan, may
Yes,
I-
sir.
It seems like in all the years I've been on this board, we've never allowed the applicant to hand out anything to anybody on this side of the dais, as far as I recall.
Correct. This didn't come from the applicant, this came from a member of the public, but generally speaking, that is correct. You know, we wouldn't allow someone to just hand out the information to the boards because zoning is based on the premise that you're making the decisions on the record. So this is information that is not in the record at this time. We can include it in the record as something that's being submitted to the meeting. But you are correct. Whenever people have come with petitions or anything like that, it does need to be, you know, submitted in advance so that it becomes part of the permanent record for the meeting and it's open and transparent and available to all, including the applicant, the boards, and the public.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else from Planning and Zoning Board?
I have a question for Allison. Did you say that in in that information you received, that there are some people within the community there that are proponents of this kennel?
Yes, ma'am. We had people that did speak in favor at the hearing tonight, and we received, Johanna's going to have to help me, I think two letters in support. Those are on the website, and they appear to be included in the information presented
They
here
should
this
be in
evening.
your packet.
And they live in the community?
Do you remember, Johanna?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Chairman, throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you folks may have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
I do, Chairman. I do. I have quite a few questions here. I'll start with the applicant. What are your requirements for all the dogs that you bring to your boarding area? I mean, in regards to like vaccine requirements?
So they're up to date on, or we keep records of all of their shot records, and that includes the leptospirosis vaccine, and that is designed to prevent any of the zoonotic disease. I'm not a veterinarian, but they will have Bordetella, the DHPP, and the leptospirosis vaccine that would, is designed to prevent any, infectious disease of the dogs.
Is that something you do, or is that something that you require from your clients?
We require that from the clients and,
Okay.
and keep the records of that.
Okay, so this is basically going to be a boarding of dogs, correct? This is not going to be a training facility for dogs. This is going to be a boarding facility for dogs.
We will train dogs, but for the purposes of the neighbors and what would affect them, it would be the boarding, yes, sir.
Okay, so if you were going to train, what type of training are you speaking of?
Obedience training.
Obedience training, okay. And you said you're going to house, your plan looked at 25 dogs, but you're looking at 30 to 35 dogs?
The
And boarding?
30, I mentioned we try to keep a 25 dog average would be our, financial goal. And that would be, having more than that on some days around the holidays. And then, during the week or down times, there might not be any dogs staying there with us.
Is there a certain type of dog that you only take, or do you take any species of dogs?
We are breed specific. We will take several different kinds, but, based on the current clients, it's probably 80% labs, golden retrievers, pointers, a lot of the doodles, but we will not have any of the aggressive breeds, no pit bulls, German shepherds, just, we've had bad experience, so we can't do those anymore. Really anything that would be deemed aggressive, we will not take those.
What are you looking at in regards to your roaming range for these dogs? How big of a fenced-in area are you looking at for that property?
Can we go back to the screen? But it was, and I've been through this a couple times, so I'm not exactly clear, but I want to say that it was roughly 1,600 feet, linear feet of fence that we would have for the dogs to be inside of, and that would be sort of the general enclosure while, our staff is looking after them and they're outside.
And how high is that fence going to be?
Per the staff, it'd be 8 feet high.
8 feet high. Okay.
And that,
You mentioned, or they mentioned, a loading, unloading zone. Is that going to be inside the building, or is that inside the fence?
inside the building.
Inside the building. So they will drive through the fenced-in area to bring the dog inside into the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And then maintenance. You mentioned they're going to be up from 5 to 8. Just think about, is that going to be like in their own certain kennel kenned up from 5 to 8?
No, sir. So at night, from, after dark, they would be in their own kennels, but from 5 to 8, the dogs would be, loose inside is not the right term, but just inside in a, group setting with myself and the staff during that time, and we would be taking them out individually, leashed for, to go to the bathroom later on in the evening after they've eaten.
Okay. And looking again, talking about maintenance, that's of course, I learned more about dog feces than I really care to know now. But, but having just a small miniature schnauzer, I know mine goes quite often. So having 25 to 30 to 35 dogs, and you're saying you're going to stay there every night?
Until I have a overnight staff and a rotation, it will be me that would be there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a residence on the property?
No, there's a office inside of the barn that, somebody could be in overnight. So it would not be a residence, but somewhere that someone could stay. And if there was ever, any noise at night, we could take the dog individually in there, do something just to make sure that, there's no disruption.
So that office is equipped with a bathroom and everything in there, correct?
Not currently. That was, we would
Okay.
put in a bathroom.
Okay. And then, all right, so this is, all right, I think that's all the questions I have for right now.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Planning and
Robbins.
zoning, I have a question for planning and zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So this is residential RA, correct?
Correct.
And what is the little white shed I'm seeing on the back there?
That is
part of the property?
That is looks like a structure on the property.
Okay. All right,
A
so
storage building.
before, this was only used just as for horses and cattle, correct?
Correct.
Because I believe, I knew the previous owner for years, so I knew that he did a lot of raising there. Okay, that's all the questions I have, Chairman. Now, I yield.
Yes, sir, Mr. Robbins.
Again, I'd be quick. I do appreciate the decorum in which the public that is here. There's only two reasons people really show out like this. I'm ideologically opposed to something and not in my backyard. So your presence here is valuable to me. And the way you conducted it, to be singular, I'm glad this is not Atlanta and we're here for 14 hours. We appreciate that we would have to accommodate you if so. But that being said, poultry, chickens, roosters, do they apply in this area, in this category, staff? I'm curious.
Yes.
It does apply. So, I get horses, I get the cows, I get chicken or poultry or whatever we call them. And so if we had 35 roosters, would that be applicable here? Could they be here?
Not by right, but with a special use.
Not by rights, but with special use. All right, thank you for clarifying that. And so, and again, I'm always curious. I'm the urban side of things, and I'm curious about my rural citizens. It's like, okay, but they got an issue with dogs. I thought, cattle, but I have to learn through your lived experience and what you really desire. I think Ms. Marlowe, she would have got the MVP for me who really explained you guys' heart, like, all right, I get it. I get it. And, when you talk about quality of life, and it's just, somebody's going to be unhappy. For every yes, somebody wants to no, and for every no, somebody wants to be yes. And our position is like, okay, now how are we going to land as a democracy? It's not a dictatorship, but still. And I hear this, and I hear that my pause is the commercialization of just like, okay, I get it. I get agribusiness, don't get me wrong. I get more than you think I do. But it's like, right there though. And my question was, did you really engage with the citizens or with the neighbors? As it sounds like you did get around, they did get to know you. You're a great guy, I get it. But it's just, sometimes it's just location, but just not right there. And this is a very seasoned neighborhood. They've clicked in such a way that Ooh, this is a tough one. I tend to work with home rule. Like, he gonna have to make this call, lead this one, but still, I hear you. The question is, can you coexist? And I'm not quite certain I'm sold yet that you got your mind around your plan, because they've got these expectations where there's probably an opportunity, but you're trying to work this thing out. And I just hadn't heard that the ease and the sophistication to meet their expectations, to coexist. I hadn't heard, like, oh, I got to work it out. I got to work it out. I got to work it out. Like, okay, you can have $25, $30 running around. Now, you know I'm scared of dogs, so I'm blind, but I ain't going to have one. But still, you are going to turn $35 in these people's backyard, and you're going to just like, okay, you're going to work it out? You're going to work it out. And I've got to pause on that because I didn't hear what I needed to connect the consideration. So for me, I'm going to have to yield, and I can't support this as is just right now. That's just me right now. I'll let my peers ultimately weigh this out. I think I've taken enough time, but Mr. Chair, I yield back. Thank you, sir.
Nothing? Nothing? Sir? It's back at you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to deny S 2023-44, a request for a special use permit to allow a dog kennel located on Pool Mill Road in Winston.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Rob Thomas, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Planning and Zoning Board, do I have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote to deny S 2023-44. All in favor, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Board makes a recommendation to deny 2023-44 special use permit to allow dog kennel on Pool Mill Road, Winston, Georgia.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, make a motion to deny S 2023-44 for the special use permit for a dog kennel listed on Pool Mill Road in Winston, Georgia.
Second.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. How do you vote? Thank you. It is denied, folks.
I got.
Okay, who's got our next agenda item? We'll give them a minute to get out. We'll take a minute to stretch.
That's a good idea.
Crowd get out. Mr. Chairman's here. Mr. Robinson's taking a short break. He'll be back with us. Next item.
So, Mr. Chairman, the next item, S 2023-45, special use permit for Noble Storage LLC. Request a special use permit to increase the height of a building from 12 feet to 50 feet in the LI Light Industrial Zoning located at 3530 Beaumar Road, Douglasville 30135. It is a parcel of 8.42 acres. Property is located on the south side of Beaumar, just west of its intersection with Simon Road. The property is partially developed with the satellite dish and satellite receiving station at telecommunications facilities. The property is fully wooded in the area where the proposed storage units are to go. The applicant does request permission for a 3-story self-storage facility with no outdoor storage of RV or boats proposed. Under Article 3, Section 338, the requirements for mini warehouses and self-service storage facilities indicate a maximum height of any building shall not exceed 12 feet, and the combined height of any building with a parapet wall shall not exceed 15 feet. Maximum building height, 3A, with the exception of the structure used for security quarters, the maximum height of self-storage facility shall be 1 story unless the Board of Commissioners approves additional stories. So what we have this evening is a request for a mini warehouse. Normally we see these as 1-story units spread across horizontally. In this case, it's going to be vertically. The approval recently on, I guess it would be Thornton Road, was a multi-story unit. That was because it was a special use permit for a storage facility in a CH. This is an LI, so it's a different zoning category, and the rules are slightly different. What we have here is also the property within the limits of the quality growth overlay district, so they'll be required to adhere to some elevated architectural requirements, landscaping requirements, etc. This is a picture of the zoning of the property showing that it's LI surrounded by residential. And it's been that way for many, many years. It was zoned LI in order to accommodate that telecommunications facility. It was there for many, many years. Here's the aerial photograph of it. One of the issues that now arises is, and I'm showing you this in a combined picture, I know it's hard for Commissioner Robinson to see it, there's a subdivision that was approved a couple of years ago that is going in right now just to the south of this property, Buckingham Terrace, and that is being developed currently. Their view shed will be the back of this building, as opposed to the folks on the other side of Beaumar who will see the front of this building. Here is a site plan for the property. On the left is kind of showing both of the properties, and on the right is a little bit more enlarged version of the footprint of the building, showing that it is, in terms of how you see it in the rear, there will be a detention pond, not storage of RVs, et cetera, which you normally would get in the back of these things. And this is an elevation showing you from left to right Beaumar Road down to the property line that runs along the subdivision. So you can see that the building sits down from Beaumar Road. When you look across Beaumar at this property, when you see the facade, you'll still be looking slightly down. However, from the property to the south, the new subdivision, you will be looking up, and you will be looking at the 3-story facade of this building from that subdivision. This is the site plan, the elevations that they supplied us, showing again on the top that there is an elevation change from the road that occurs somewhere in about the middle of the 3rd story and drops down to where they would propose parking in front of the building for the middle floor, and then you will drive down around to the rear to enter the bottom floor. So that's 3 stories accessed from front and 3 stories accessed from the rear. In addition, if you can see, it's a little hard to tell, but it looks to the front of the building is showing exterior roll-up doors accessed from outside, as well as the glass indoors where you walk into the building and access interior units rather. Here on the next slide is a view of the rear. It's a little small, but the upper picture on the upper left is showing you again, looking from right to left in the top portion at street level down to the rear, and then the bottom portion is the rear facade. Again, showing you those dark black squares are the doors, the roll-up doors that would be accessed from the outside of the building and the entry into the building. This is the existing satellite station, and I believe the satellites are gone, but the building is still there and the parking is still there. The access to the property is proposed to come in through this driveway on Bomar that exists right now. This is looking from, on Bomar to the west, and the building is on the left. This is looking again along Bomar to the adjoining properties that are across the street. This is a picture of the properties on the right and would be developed on the right. The properties on the left, that would be their homes on the second floor or the first floor, looking directly into the front facade of that building, as well as the roof elements. Staff has reviewed the criteria, and I have to say, under the first, second, third criteria, we don't feel that it meets the criteria. We feel that this would be an overwhelming edifice looking up from the subdivision that's going in. We don't feel it meets the intent of the code. So what we're suggesting is that the maximum height is not limited in the LI district generally, but storage facilities are restricted to single-story heights without permission from the commissioners. Neither the unlimited height standard in the LI nor the specific three-story height would be consistent with the residential low-density maximum heights of 35 feet, which is seen in the surrounding properties. Under factor 2, will the establishment impede the special use, impede the normal and orderly development? Granting this special use would create a significant architectural deviation from the neighborhood, and it might provide substantial spot benefit to this property not granted to other developed sites immediately surrounding. Just to assuage all of you, this represents a tremendous spot zoning problem. It's a vestige zoning that was done so many years ago. It's surrounded by residential, and we would never allow one of these to come to you today as is. It's a problem when people get a special advantage for a particular site when they're surrounded by something else. So right out of the gate, it's just one of those where you have a person that could take advantage of that zoning. And we have these requests from time to time around the county with old zoning that sits around for years, never develops, and then suddenly things change and the property becomes advantageous to develop for something that really wasn't intended. In this case, again, factor 3, location and character of the proposed special use consistent with a desirable pattern of development. Staff does not feel it's consistent or desirable with the pattern of development going on in the property. I show you this slide because I want you to see where things line up. The right-hand picture is showing you that same elevation change from Bomar Road over to the other end of the property that adjoins the new subdivision, just so you can get sort of a relationship, a context as to what lots are looking at. So you see the residential lots looking across an existing stream. There are trees in the stream. There is some vegetative cover that could obscure the building, but staff still feels that that building's edifice on the rear at 3 stories would be too intense for that subdivision to view. Staff's recommending denial of the requested special use permit with the following findings: that the use will modify the land use plan and the intent, purpose, and spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and B, the granting of the special use permit may adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. In sort of honoring Commissioner Robinson's intent that we work with other people all the time, we would suggest a compromise solution. I don't want to leave you hanging that this is a strict denial. So I have prepared something that we could recommend approval of. I'm going to go back up to the picture. I'm going to show you why we would like to recommend something slightly different. I don't know if the applicant is going to agree or not, but this is what we would recommend. Instead of a 3-story building, we would recommend a 2-story building. We would take the 3rd floor off. We would allow them to access the top floor from the Bomar Street facade. We would allow them to access the basement from the rear of the property, and that sort of honors the intent that you have 1 floor per facade. It's the intent of the code to have 1 story in terms of how you view it from where you enter the building. We realize that that's still 2 stories. It's still going to have a facade from the subdivision, but if you were inclined to try and compromise in some way, allowing at least a 2-story with a facade entered from the front and a facade entered from the rear, remove the 3rd story, that if you were inclined to do that, we could recommend approval of that. But that's how we would see it, is that it would honor the intent of the code without actually adhering to specifically what the code wants us to do. It's one of those compromise proposals. So I will read you that condition just so in case you're inclined to do it. Staff could recommend the approval of the condition of a two-story concept with one-story access from the lowest level entrance and one floor access from the street-facing facade above. This would allow finding that the intent of the development code for a single-story storage facility is being honored by allowing one accessible floor per street side facade, one accessible floor per rear-facing facade below. Conditions would be the applicant submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns that have been raised and the requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated June 6, 2023. And then 2, any other use of the property not identified in section 210, uses allowed in each zone district, specifically table 2.2, principal uses allowed by right, and 2.3, accessory uses allowed by right of the Douglas County Unified Development Code may require the submission, review, and approval of another special use permit. With that, I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, chairmen and members of the board. My name is David White. I'm with Civil Logistics, 500 Sun Valley Drive. Just wanted to start off by pointing out a clarification. The request says an increase from 12 feet to 50 feet. It's actually from 12 feet to roughly 25 feet on the front side and then 35 feet on the back side. So we're not requesting to go up to 35 feet. Just a few quick things to point out for the factors. Number one, will the use be consistent with the stated purpose of the zoning district? And this use is allowed by right. I know the report said no, but that's with additional heights. The use is allowed by right by zoning, so we feel like that is consistent. Number two, will the use impede the development of the surrounding property? Because of the different uses surrounding the residential versus the industrial, there is already a 50-foot transitional buffer that is surrounding this development, providing extra cover and buffer. And the report also talks about the architectural requirements as being a deviation, but it's part of the overlay, and the applicant intends to fully comply with all of the architectural requirements of that overlay. So there should be no issues with the architecture. Number three, is the location consistent with desirable pattern of development? This, again, it's allowed by right. The applicant is not choosing the zoning district to be incompatible. It's the zoning district that has been chosen by the county, and he's just moving forward with that and trying to do the use that, again, is allowed by right. The rear of the building is roughly 120 feet from the rear property line, and so there's, in that 120 feet, is roughly the 50-foot buffer, detention pond, and then some parking and access. And then in between that property line, as shown on one of those slides, in between that property line and then the new residential development is roughly 200 feet of HOA buffers for the stream. So that's another 200 feet of trees, and then there would be backyards and stuff. So the houses would be roughly 400 feet away from the building. So we understand the compromise to 2 stories. The additional third story is only 10 feet 8 inches, which we feel is fairly insignificant from 400 feet away, and ask that you consider that in your judgment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please state your name and address, and you also will have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Brad Noble. I'm the applicant, 780 Johnson's Ferry Road, Atlanta, Georgia. I just really want to talk about the site. You know, I want to be a good neighbor to the community. You know, this site is entitled by right, like David said, but there's a lot of hardship with the topography. It's on a hill, so doing a single-story building is just very difficult on this site. And this community is drastically undersupplied for self-storage with all the houses there. The 3-mile radius there, it's undersupplied by over 100,000 gross square feet. So even after we build this, there's still going to be unmet demand, especially with all the new houses going there. And really, you know, we want this to be a nice Class A secure building. And we think that doing a 3-story building like we're proposing is more or is better for the community. It looks more like an office building than garages, and I think that the community would like that more than us putting single stories there. And with that said, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total time of 15 minutes. If you'd state your name and address first, please.
Dion Young, address 3509 Beaumar Road, Douglasville, Georgia, 30135. I live directly across the street from where this gentleman is wanting to build this property. It took us a year to get the satellites removed in the former property. That property was shut down by the city of Douglasville because it was a meth location. They literally came in with hazmat suits and so on and so forth and cleared out the property. My husband and I have called the city multiple times to cut the grass over there. So any conditions that may be set is probably not going to be enforced. Literally, he pulled my house up, my driveway up on the picture. This property has been vacant since the city has come in and shut it down, and I am not in favor of any type of business. This is not a business district, it's a residential district. We bought that house for $384,000, and it will be an eyesore. If I look out of my garage, literally, I would see that storage facility staring at me. My husband and I leave our house early in the morning. Sometimes we have our grandchildren over for our weekends or have functions over. The last thing we know about storage facilities is they bring in an element that we don't need in our area. There was a facility just built on Chapel Hill Road. There's a facility in a better area on Fairburn Road because it has that capability to house those type of storage facilities. But this area, we have HOA, we have a whole, our neighbors, I don't know why they're not here, but they even spoke out that they're not in favor of this. It would be a total eyesore to our neighborhood. So I ask that you deny the whole petition, especially the height requirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Marlon Young. I'm the husband.
Okay.
Again, live directly across the street. I'm in opposition simply because of the security measures. I don't understand I don't know what will happen with the traffic that will be coming to and from. Right now, we don't have a lot of stopping traffic. It moves through. But with that facility, I'm not sure what will happen with who's coming and going. I don't know. I have cars parked outside. I have things in my yard that I just don't know. So that's where my opposition comes from, as well as there's no other businesses in that area. The closest business I can think of is the Kroger Plaza that's right down the street. There's nothing else there. If we were talking homes being built, I'd be thumbs up. But being that it's going to be a business where you can't say what the security will be like, that's what bothers me. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. If you would, state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Linda Love, and I'm 3559 Beaumar Road. I live directly in front of, which would be my front door, not my back door. So to wake up in the morning or to hear the noise of someone moving in with the storage would kind of be like inappropriate. So with the street on Beaumar already being busy, I can imagine now what the traffic will be like. So I wouldn't want that in front of my home.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Love. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
Rob Thomas, I have a question of staff first. I just want to be clear. I'm familiar with the area, live around the corner, but it was satellites all over. Like at one point, I guess they moved them now.
They're gone.
They're gone. Yeah, okay. Still got the
structures.
Still got the structure. Yeah, still there. By right, LI, light industrial, they can do this anyway. The issue here is not so much can they build a storage facility, but can they increase the height of the storage facility?
They could build
so
a single.
by right,
Yes.
LI, they can be parking for trucks if they wanted to do that. I mean, by right, correct?
No.
LI.
That's a special
So it's
use
still
permit.
special use.
Yeah.
But trucks could be utilized, and say if someone had a business there, then trucks could be utilized, could be there.
If they were owned by the company as fleet parking.
As fleet parking, 10,000 pounds or greater. So it is an industrial lot to begin with. It is industrial. Like I said, you probably wouldn't do this before. You wouldn't bring this to us now to get rezoned industrial. But because it's already zoned industrial, by right, they can actually erect this without a special use.
There's a lot of things they could do on the property by right.
Okay.
They would need a development review committee approval of
Right.
site
I mean,
plan.
it's structured, right, of course.
That's the
But by
details.
right, they don't have to come through here to get it done.
No, if they had submitted a architecturally appropriate single-story storage facility on the property,
Okay.
they could have gone right to DRC.
Okay.
And then you would have never seen it.
Okay. So really the issue here is the height of the facility.
That's the whole point of the code.
Okay.
When you exceed the height, you got to have permission because the context is important.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that it's not nothing that, it can be done with or without us, is what the point is. This could be done by right.
To a point, yes.
Good point. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure. Y'all go ahead.
Yeah, I have to the applicant. I have a question for the applicant. So as you heard what the planning and zoning, I mean, they came up with the staff came up with the recommendation to go with 1 story versus 2 stories, basically, kind of, or 3 stories. And you said you feel in opposition of that. You prefer to have it go as you has presented to us today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the question is, they brought the traffic. I live very close to that, which is right around the corner. And there's very limited amount of traffic that come there. There is traffic that comes, but there's no stopping traffic. It's mostly either turning traffic or keeping going to the Kroger's that's up the street. And this is going to be considered a business. And will there be U-Hauls? Will there be other type trucks parked on that facility that people will utilize for your storage facility?
No, we don't rent trucks. We won't have like a U-Haul center there. The only trucks that will be going on are people moving from their house. They're unloading their stuff. They're going into the property and then they're leaving. So there won't be trucks parking there long term. We won't be renting trucks. And to address the traffic, the only commercial use that has less traffic than self-storage is a cell tower. It's less than 10 customers a day once we're stabilized. So as far as traffic, a low traffic generating use, there's nothing better than a self-storage facility.
I have a question. Have you talked to the residents in the area about what you're planning on doing in that area?
Yeah, we had a neighborhood meeting a few weeks ago. We had 2 or 3 neighbors show up. The biggest concern was they saw the sign and they thought that we were trying to build a 50-foot structure. And I could understand why they showed up for that. And when we explained to them from the view from the street, it's only going to appear like it's a 1-story structure essentially because it's going to go down. So as soon as we told them, hey, we're not building a 50-foot structure right across the street from you, it's going to go down the hill and it's only going to look like a 1-story structure from the road, they were okay with it.
Okay. Did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to add real quickly that based on the ITE trip generation report that we prepared for this, it results in a peak hour of 9 cars and during the weekdays. So
Okay.
it's very low generating. Like
Okay. I have a question, staff. Did we get any other complaints from the residents in opposition?
Other than the folks who testified this evening, there were just the 2 who were at the community information meeting. I haven't had anything else from anybody else.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Well, Mr. Schaefer, either you or the applicant, either one can answer this question. How many square feet are they proposing as it is now?
It's roughly 100,000 gross square feet over 3 floors.
So if you took off that third level, you'd still want the 100,000 square feet? You'd just have to spread it out?
Yes, it would be essentially a 2-story building with 50,000 square feet on each floor. It would basically take it, I don't know how wide we are right now, I have it in front of me, but it would make it essentially a very, very wide, long building.
And you're going to have entrances from Bomar as well as Simon Road?
No, just the one entrance from Beaumar.
Just the one entrance from Bomar. And the subdivision behind it is on Simon, and they'll be able to see your facility clearer than the ones on Bomar, the traffic on Bomar versus the Simon.
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. I would say from the back, there's the stream, there's the buffer, there's the detention pond, then there's parking, then there's the building. And so that's a long buffer. And then from Bomar, they're going to see they're not going to see the back of the building, I guess. So I don't know the best way to answer your question there.
The back of the building should stick up roughly 5 feet, we think, above Bomar Road.
Is that as it's designed now, or if you take off that top level?
No, that's as designed now. If we take off the top level, then the entire building would be below Bomar Road.
And you would spread it out? If you took off, like Phil recommended, if you take off that third level, reduce the height, you would have to get your 100,000 square feet, you'd have to spread it out more?
It would have to be spread out
And
larger.
would that be what you would do if you agreed to that? It would take out more trees and more.
Yeah, we would essentially use up much more land. It would just stretch it out horizontally. We're using less land by going vertical. If we take off the top level, we're just going to be spread out because our footprint is just going to increase by 33% essentially.
So percentage of your 8 acres, you'd probably build on
5 of them.
5 acres as is, or if you took off that top layer?
I think right now we're at 4, about half. We're about half right now. We would have to increase it. We haven't really looked at the site plan that much by taking off that top and spreading it out, but it would take up a lot more land.
And then you have the buffers and everything you have to contend with, so you might not even be able to do that in that amount of land. You might not be able to spread it out.
We have 8 acres. I think we would probably be able to do it. I'm not sure that we haven't looked at it with the setbacks and all that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question for Mr. Schaefer again, please. Phil, can we go back to your slide where you indicated the code indicates the 12-foot high is the maximum allowed for a storage structure of this kind? So that would be a 12 feet high off the existing grade, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the problem I'm having trying to figure out is just because they bought a piece of land that has a horrible geographic problem, why is it we get to allow them to have a whole another floor? They can fill, believe me, I know, we fill all the time. They can fill in and have one level building, 12 feet above Bomar Road and be done with it. How is it they are, I don't understand.
Well, if you go to my first recommendation, it's a recommendation of denial.
Okay.
Period.
All right.
I only offered up the addition idea if you were of a mind to compromise on that. But staff recommends denial of the additional height. We would prefer to see a single story. That's what the code requires. And given the context of where he's at and the residential nature of everything around it, and the fact that this is vestigial light industrial that's being taken advantage of, we would prefer not to see a 3-story building. We would prefer not to see a 2-story building. We would prefer to see, if you're going to do it by right, do it by right. 1 story is all you get.
And regardless, the land lays horribly front to back and left to right. There's
As
no
horrible as
question
it
about
gets, but that's
Yeah.
the same handicap that the residences below and the residences to the east are all suffering with as well.
Right. Okay, that's pretty much my question. Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? I have a question of Mr. Noble. If you were facing a denial, would you rather have a denial or would you rather have a compromise?
Depends on what the compromise
The
would be.
2-story compromise that he's proposed.
Yeah, we would rather have the compromise, sir.
Okay, just asking, clarification. Okay, Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Board is finished. Any questions from the commissioners?
Thank you, Chairman. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Chairman. This would be to the applicant. You gave us that it would be 100,000 square feet. How many units are you proposing within that structure?
750.
750. Okay, so that's 750 units.
And I'd also like to point out that while this does have a restriction, there's many other permitted uses allowed by right with 0 restrictions, including a livestock auction, car, truck, trailer, RV leasing, garage, parking garage with no
Thank you so much.
limitations on
We
height.
understand that. My
Okay.
next question is, how do you handle customers' units that do not pay? Like when they don't pay for their unit, how do you all handle their stuff?
When we have customers that don't pay, there's a process. So we send out notices, let them know, and then after a while, their unit gets taken over by us, and if they don't pay through a certain time, then it gets auctioned off. And the auctions are not done in person; they're done online through just online website.
Okay, and then that person, whoever gets the bid, they have to come and remove the stuff off of the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how do you handle waste, trash, debris?
Just on the property.
Just on the property?
We'll have a normal dumpster enclosure on there that will get picked up. Not even we have so little trash that we don't even need it picked up every week. It's every other week normally for every facility.
Got you. And then this will be an enclosed unit? So what we would see is somebody would drive under and put their stuff in, or would it be from the outside that they're putting their belongings into the units?
It's an interior unit, if that was your question. So all the units right now, as we're planning, is going to be accessed from the inside the building. So a fully enclosed, climate-controlled building.
Got you. And what are the hours of operation?
They are, I have them written down. So Monday through Saturday would be 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's manned hours. That's when we have someone in the office for them. Sunday it's closed. But then customers, they have access to their units from 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
To 10 p.m. So they would get in with a code to
Yeah,
enter to the...
each unit or each customer, when they get a unit, they get their own unique access code that they have to put in that code to enter the building and get in the elevators if they're on the second floor or the bottom floor.
Got you. Would there be a gate to the property? Is it electronic gate, or you just can enter the property to put your things into the unit?
So we were looking at the site plan. We're thinking we'll have a gate on both sides to go access the building from the back side right now.
Got you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any more questions or comments? Back to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion, the comments. Do we have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny application 2023-39.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, apparently I was looking at the wrong sheet. It's 2023-45. I apologize.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of recommending denial of S 2023-45, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, S 2023-45 comes to you with a denial recommendation from Planning and Zoning Board.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to deny application S 2023-45.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? The motion is denied.
Okay, thank you very much. Motion was denied. Having nothing else to come before the Planning and Zoning Board tonight, I will declare Planning and Zoning Board adjourned. Mr. Chairman.
We are out of here.